Do you feel like your brain is sometimes your own worst enemy? Procrastination, anxiety, and negative thoughts stick to you daily. But what if I told you you could hack your mind? In this video, I reveal 100 real mental hacks, backed by science, to master your emotions and speed up your workflow. From the 90-second rule to power poses, these are tools you can use instantly. Ready to upgrade yourself? Let's start. 1. Name your inner critic. Everyone carries an inner critic, a relentless internal monologue that thrives on doubt and fear. This voice is the ghost in our mental machine, whispering that we are not smart enough, talented enough, or worthy of success. It is a subtle predator, gaining its power from our silence and our tendency to believe its corrosive narrative. However, a profound psychological technique allows you to sever its power, not through battle, but through a simple act of externalization, giving it a name. This isn't just a quirky mind game. It's a clinically recognized strategy known as cognitive diffusion. When you assign your inner critic a silly or mundane name, like Doubtful Debbie or General Panic, you create a crucial separation between your identity and the negative thought. The thought is no longer an intrinsic part of you. It becomes an external broadcast from a character you've created. Imagine you're preparing for a crucial job interview. As you review your notes, a familiar voice chimes in. You're going to forget everything. They'll see right through you. Instead of letting that anxiety take root, you can pause and say, there's Debbie again. Always so dramatic. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. You are no longer the victim of the thought. You are the observer of it. This creates a space where you can challenge, ignore, or even laugh at the criticism. The battlefield in your mind transforms into a stage, and you are the director who decides which character gets the microphone. This act introduces levity and perspective into what would otherwise be a paralyzing internal struggle, allowing you to proceed with clarity and courage, acknowledging the noise without obeying it. This is the first step in reclaiming your mind. 2. The because heuristic. There is a strange and almost magical power hidden within the word because, a psychological trigger so potent that it can dramatically shift opinions and secure compliance. The secret isn't in the logic that follows the word, but in the illusion of justification it provides. The human brain, in its constant effort to conserve energy, relies on mental shortcuts or heuristics. The word, because acts as one of these shortcuts, signaling to our brain that a valid reason is being presented, often causing us to bypass critical analysis and simply agree. This phenomenon was famously demonstrated in a Harvard study by psychologist Ellen Langer. Researchers attempting to cut in line at a copy machine found that simply asking, "May I use the copier?" had a moderate success rate. However, when they added a reason, "Because I'm in a rush," compliance soared. The most astonishing part, even when the reason was utterly meaningless, "Because I need to make copies," people still complied at nearly the same high rate. This reveals a profound truth about human psychology. Our brains are wired to respond to the pattern of cause and effect, and because is the key that unlocks that pattern. It signals purpose, and we are instinctively more receptive to individuals who appear to have a reason for their actions, even if that reason is nonsensical. This tool is not just for influencing others. It is a powerful device for self-motivation. Instead of thinking, "I should go to the gym," try framing it as, "I'm going to the gym because I value my health and promised myself I would." The addition of a reason, no matter how simple, provides a sense of purpose that can overcome inertia. Whether in negotiations, emails, or even parenting, this word disarms defenses and makes you sound more reasonable, nudging the world toward agreement. 3. The perfectionism breaker. Aiming for poorly. Perfectionism is a silent assassin of creativity and momentum. It cloaks even the smallest task in an overwhelming sense of fear, whispering that if you cannot do something flawlessly, you shouldn't do it at all. This all-or-nothing mindset leads to a state of paralysis, where the terror of imperfection keeps you from ever beginning. However, there's a rebellious and deeply effective technique that shatters these chains, deliberately setting out to do the task poorly. This isn't an excuse for laziness. It is a strategic maneuver to outwit your own mind. By giving yourself explicit permission to create something terrible, you fundamentally change the objective. The goal is no longer to produce a masterpiece. The goal is simply to produce something. This ridiculous permission slip can awaken a powerful sense of freedom and play. Imagine a writer staring at a blank page, frozen by the pressure to write a brilliant opening chapter. If they instead decide, my goal today is to write the worst, clunkiest, most cliché-ridden page imaginable, the pressure evaporates. They can write freely, without the constant judgment of their inner critic. And here lies the secret. What is produced when aiming for terrible is often surprisingly salvageable, and sometimes is even good, because it is authentic, uninhibited, and most importantly, it exists. You can edit a bad page, but you can never edit a blank one. This approach rewires your brain to prioritize momentum over outcome, silencing the critic long enough for you to get started. It gets you across the terrifying threshold from nothing to something, and that is where all creation truly begins. The first step isn't doing it right. It's doing it at all. 4. Reverse psychology, a weapon against yourself. The human brain possesses a defiant streak. It instinctively resists being told what to do. This psychological reactance is so ingrained that it often rebels even when you are the one giving the orders. This is why strict diets often lead to binge eating, and rigid routines crumble under pressure. The feeling of should or have to triggers an internal resistance to the perceived loss of autonomy. But what if you could harness this inner rebel and trick it into aligning with your goals? This is the art of applying reverse psychology to yourself. It's not about manipulation, but about a clever reframing of your intentions to bypass your own stubbornness. When you tell yourself, I absolutely have to go to the gym, your brain hears an obligation and instinctively recoils. The task feels like a chore, a burden that you want to escape. However, if you flip the script and declare, you know what? I'm definitely not working out today. I forbid it. A curious thing happens. The rebellious part of your brain, which craves freedom and choice, suddenly feels a restriction. It wants to push back, to prove that it cannot be controlled. This subtle nudge, this whispered prohibition, can ignite a spark of desire for the very activity you were just resisting. Suddenly, the urge to tidy the house builds when you've declared it a no cleaning day. The desire to write a blog post intensifies after you've told yourself you don't care about it. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's a strategic dance with your own defiance. You are outwitting the part of your mind that thrives on opposition, turning your inner saboteur into an unwitting accomplice. In this clever twist, you find unexpected motivation and freedom. 5. The 90-second rule for emotional mastery. Emotions can feel like tidal waves, overwhelming, all-consuming, and seemingly permanent. When a surge of anger, anxiety, or grief hits, it can feel as though you are drowning in an inescapable force, one that will define your entire state of being for hours or even days. However, neuroscience offers a revolutionary truth that can serve as a lifeline. In their raw, chemical form, most emotions last for only about 90 seconds. After that initial minute and a half, the feeling you are experiencing is not the original emotion itself, but rather the story you are actively feeding it. This is the 90-second rule, a concept rooted in the work of brain scientist Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. When an event triggers an emotional response, your body releases a flood of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals surge through your system, creating the physical sensations of emotion. The racing heart, the flushed cheeks, the tense muscles. The crucial part is this: if you do not add thoughts to that initial chemical reaction, it will burn out and dissipate on its own within 90 seconds. The problem is that most of us don't let it pass. We grab onto the feeling, replaying the insult, analyzing the fear, and catastrophizing the future. Each time we loop the story, we reignite the chemical process, effectively keeping the emotion alive indefinitely. The suffering isn't the emotion. It's the narrative loop we attach to it. Practicing the 90-second rule is about learning to stand in the storm without becoming it. When rage hits, don't react. When panic rises, don't obey. When panic rises, don't obey. Simply observe the physical sensations, breathe, and count. You become the observer, not the prisoner. This brief window of watching instead of reacting is where you reclaim your power, learning that emotions are messengers, not masters. 6. Change your location to change your mind. Your thoughts are not abstract entities floating in a vacuum. They are deeply and inextricably linked to your physical environment. Every room you inhabit, every chair you sit in, becomes a silent trigger, conditioning your mind to run on specific, pre-programmed loops of thought and feeling. This is why a brilliant idea might strike you in the shower, but vanish the moment you return to your desk, or why you feel a creative block in the same office where you manage tedious administrative tasks. Your surroundings become a stage, and your brain, a conditioned actor, plays the same role every time the curtain rises. To break this cycle, you don't need to force a change in your thinking. You need to change your location. Stepping into a different room, a new cafe, or even just moving to the other side of the sofa can trigger a mental shift so profound it feels like unlocking a hidden part of your mind. This phenomenon is grounded in neurology. Your brain relies on environmental cues to dictate behavior and cognitive patterns. When you move to a new space, those cues disappear, and the system is forced to reset. The mental fog, the creative stagnation, or the emotional weight can evaporate simply because your senses are engaged with something unfamiliar. You become more present, more aware, and more open to new connections. It's the psychological equivalent of hitting the refresh button on your internal browser. Suddenly, pages that refuse to load now appear with startling clarity. So, when you feel stuck, don't try to wrestle your thoughts into submission. Instead, move your body. Walk outside, switch rooms, or sit on the floor. Let the shift in light, sound, and perspective unravel the mental knots. You will quickly discover that your mind often follows where your body leads. 7. The decision fatigue fix. You're not lazy or unmotivated. You're cognitively exhausted. This exhaustion doesn't come from physical labor, but from the thousands of tiny decisions you make every day, each one chipping away at your willpower like a slow, invisible erosion. What should I wear? What should I eat for breakfast? Which email do I open first? Should I reply now or later? By the time a truly important decision arises, your mental reserves are already depleted. This is decision fatigue, a very real psychological state that explains why you feel so drained at the end of a day, even if you've accomplished very little. Your mind has a finite daily supply of decision-making energy, and it doesn't distinguish between trivial choices and monumental ones. Every decision, big or small, draws from the same fuel tank. This is why visionaries like Steve Jobs famously wore the same outfit every day, and why highly disciplined individuals rely on rigid routines. They are strategically preserving their most valuable resource. The solution is not to make fewer decisions, but to automate the ones that don't matter. This is accomplished through pre-decision. On Sunday, plan your meals for the week. Before bed, lay out your clothes for the next day. Set up automatic bill payments. Create non-negotiable morning and evening routines that your brain can execute on autopilot. The more you can script your low-impact choices, the more cognitive firepower you will have for the moments that truly define your career, relationships, and life. You will notice an immediate difference. The mental fog you mistook for laziness begins to lift. The classic 3 p.m. slump fades away because your mind is no longer bleeding energy from 1,000 tiny cuts. You have created space and defended your attention, allowing you to make your best decisions when they matter most. 8. The echo technique in conflict resolution. When a conversation escalates and voices begin to rise, The natural human instinct is to defend, attack, or withdraw. Each of these reactions pours fuel on the emotional fire, leading to further misunderstanding and disconnection. However, there is a quieter, almost invisible strategy that can diffuse tension and foster connection without the other person even realizing what is happening. It's called the echo technique, and it is disarmingly simple. Gently repeat the last few words the other person said, framing it with a tone of curiosity. This small act can completely reshape the emotional landscape of a conflict. At the heart of any argument is a deep, universal desire to feel heard and understood. When you echo someone's words, for instance, if they say, "I just feel like you never listen to me," you can respond with, "You never listen to you." You are sending a powerful, subconscious signal. I am with you. I am paying attention. This technique short-circuits their defensive posture. Instead of preparing a rebuttal, they feel a sense of acknowledgement, which causes their emotional walls to begin crumbling. This isn't about mindless parroting or manipulation. It's about mirroring the emotional core of their statement. Neurologically, this is incredibly effective. Hearing one's own words reflected back has a calming effect on the amygdala, the brain's fear center. It softens the adrenaline response and invites a more vulnerable, honest exchange. People become calmer when they no longer have to fight to be understood. The most profound aspect of the echo technique is its simplicity. You don't need clever arguments or perfect solutions. You only need to offer your presence, reflected in a small echo of their own words. With this, you can melt resistance, build rapport, and create the space for a true resolution to emerge. 9. Visualize the worst to conquer fear. Fear thrives in the darkness of the unknown. It whispers vague, shapeless threats that grow into monstrous certainties in the absence of scrutiny. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if they all laugh? Because we rarely confront these fears directly, they become amorphous and seemingly unstoppable. The secret to deflating this power is to do the opposite of what your instincts tell you. Instead of running from the fear, you must drag it into the light and give it a detailed, concrete shape. This is accomplished through a powerful Stoic practice of negative visualization. This isn't about pessimistic forecasting. It's a deliberate, clear-eyed simulation of your greatest fear coming true. You must vividly imagine the project failing, being fired from your job, the relationship ending, or freezing on stage. Picture the aftermath in granular detail. Feel the discomfort in your nervous system. Then, once you are there, in the middle of your imagined wreckage, calmly ask yourself the most important question. And then what? What would you actually do the next day? Who would you call for support? Where would you live? How would you begin to recover? As you walk yourself step by step through the process of survival, a strange and powerful transformation occurs. You realize that while it would be painful, you would not be destroyed. You would adapt, you would find a way, you would survive. And with that realization, the fear loses its suffocating grip on your present actions. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the clarity that you can endure whatever comes next. Wow. Once you have rehearsed your own comeback story from the absolute worst-case scenario, you are finally free to act, to risk, and to live without being paralyzed by the fall. 10. Reframe anxiety as excitement. Your heart is pounding, your palms are sweating, and your stomach is in knots. Wow. You are about to give a speech, walk into a negotiation, or face a significant challenge, and the familiar grip of anxiety tightens around you. The automatic response is to label this feeling as nervousness, a negative state that you must suppress or endure. But what if that feeling isn't the enemy? What if it's actually fuel that you are misinterpreting? The physiological symptoms of anxiety and excitement are nearly identical: an increased heart rate, a surge of cortisol, and heightened awareness. The only real difference is the story your mind wraps around these sensations. Anxiety tells a story of threat and danger, while excitement tells one of opportunity and challenge. By simply reframing your internal narrative with three powerful words, "I am excited," you can hijack this response and turn perceived fear into functional energy. This is not just a hollow pep talk. It is a well-researched psychological technique known as anxiety reappraisal. When you tell yourself "I'm excited" instead of "I'm nervous," you shift your mindset from one of avoidance to one of engagement. Your brain stops trying to shut down the perceived threat and instead begins to prepare for optimal performance. You are not denying the physical sensations. You are consciously steering them. Elite athletes, public speakers, and top performers have long used this mental hack. They understand that nerves are not the problem. Resistance to those nerves is what causes paralysis. By labeling the state as excitement, you transform the jitters from a source of dread into a signal that you are ready and alive. The next time your chest tightens before a big moment, don't try to calm down. Lean into the energy, rename it, and watch as what once felt like panic transforms into power. 11. Rubber duck, debugging for life's problems. In the world of software engineering, there's a peculiar yet highly effective problem-solving method known as rubber duck debugging. When a developer is stuck on a complex coding problem, they will place a rubber duck on their desk and meticulously explain their code to it, line by line. They don't expect an answer. The duck is just a silent listener. In the vast majority of cases, by simply verbalizing the problem, they discover the solution themselves mid-sentence. This is because the act of articulation forces clarity. When your mind is tangled in a web of stress, confusion, or indecision, your thoughts often spin too quickly and chaotically to be untangled internally. They collide, repeat, and create a sense of overwhelming noise. But when you are forced to explain the problem out loud, as if teaching it to an inanimate object, you must slow down and impose structure on the chaos. This powerful principle extends far beyond coding. When you are lost, articulating your predicament to a friend, a journal, or even your steering wheel can unlock the answers buried beneath the emotional noise. The magic isn't in the listener. It's in the act of externalizing and organizing your thoughts into a coherent narrative. As you speak, you shift from a purely emotional state to a more logical one. You begin to notice contradictions, identify flawed assumptions, and see patterns that were previously invisible. You might start by saying, "I'm so overwhelmed because I have too much to do." But as you explain what you have to do, you may realize the problem isn't the volume of tasks, but your fear of starting one specific task. When you feel stuck, don't just think harder. Speak your way through the problem. The words themselves will untangle the knots. 12. The simplicity compass. What if it were easy? Our culture often glorifies struggle, treating effort as a badge of honor and complexity as a sign of importance. We unconsciously learn that if a solution doesn't feel hard-won, it must not be valuable. This belief system turns simple tasks into convoluted labyrinths and wraps our goals in unnecessary layers of doubt and overthinking. We become addicted to the friction, convinced that the path of most resistance is the most virtuous one. But buried beneath this conditioning is a simple, life-altering question that can cut through the noise like a bolt of lightning. What would this look like if it were easy? This question is a powerful tool for disarming the ego and bypassing the part of the brain that is addicted to complexity. It pulls you out of the fog of overthinking and into the clarifying light of simplicity. It whispers that there is another way, a quieter, cleaner, more direct path forward. When you ask this question, the daunting project that felt impossible suddenly reveals its first, simple step. The emotionally charged conversation you've been avoiding simplifies into a single, honest statement. You begin to seek flow and efficiency instead of glorifying exhaustion as proof of your value. Easy doesn't mean lazy. It means aligned. It means finding the path where your energy is not being wasted on fear, control, or perfectionism. Ask this question when you feel overwhelmed, stuck, or on the verge of burnout. The moment the words form in your mind, watch how you begin to see opportunities to delegate, automate, simplify, or delete. It invites innovation and helps you identify where you are carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. This question doesn't just make your work easier. It brings a sense of lightness and even joy back into the process. 13. The Zeigarnik effect. The tyranny of unfinished tasks. There is a silent weight that you carry throughout your day, a nagging tension that hums just beneath the surface of your awareness, especially when you try to relax. It is the restless pull of the unfinished, the email draft sitting in your outbox, the difficult conversation you've postponed, the creative project left half done. You might consciously forget about these tasks, but your brain has not. It is silently spinning in the background, dedicating precious cognitive resources to keeping these open loops active. This phenomenon is known as the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological principle discovered by Bluma Zeigarnik, which posits that the human mind has a powerful bias toward remembering incomplete or interrupted tasks over completed ones. Finished tasks fade from memory, but unfinished ones linger, haunting your subconscious and resurfacing at the most inopportune times, whispering of unresolved business. Your brain isn't doing this to torment you. It's a built-in mechanism designed to ensure you follow through on your intentions. It keeps a persistent, low-level alert running for all loose ends. However, this constant background processing is a significant drain on your mental energy and a primary source of modern anxiety. The twist and the solution lies in a simple psychological hack. Your mind doesn't necessarily need the task to be completed to release its grip. It just needs a clear plan for completion. By simply writing the task down, breaking it into the first actionable step, or scheduling a specific time to work on it, you provide your brain with the closure it craves. The moment you create a concrete plan, your brain feels safe letting go, trusting that the task is not forgotten. The mental fog lifts, and the inner noise quiets, not because the work is done, but because your mind finally believes it will be. 14. Desirable difficulty. The power of an ugly font. When studying or learning new information, the brain operates as a relentless pattern-seeking machine. It craves familiarity and efficiency, quickly adapting to routines and shortcuts. While this is useful for many tasks, it becomes a trap during the learning process. When you consistently study material presented in the same clean font, layout, and format, your mind begins to skim rather than process. It shifts from deep cognitive engagement to simple pattern recognition. You start to recognize the shape of the information without truly absorbing its meaning. This illusion of familiarity masquerades as genuine understanding, and it is where true learning goes to die. To combat this, you can employ a strange but powerful technique. Deliberately make the material harder to read. Change the font. Switch from a standard Times New Roman to a clunkier Courier, or even something jarring like Comic Sans. This principle is known as desirable difficulty. By introducing a minor disruption to the flow of information, you force your brain to disengage from autopilot and work harder to decode the text. That extra cognitive effort is precisely what embeds the material more deeply into your memory. It might feel annoying or slow at first, and that friction is a sign that it's working. You are no longer passively glossing over the words. You are actively wrestling with them. Studies have consistently shown that when text is more difficult to read, long-term recall and comprehension improve significantly. You shift from being a passive consumer of information to an active participant in the learning process. So, the next time you feel your study session turning into a mindless blur, don't just push through. Jolt your brain out of its comfort zone. Change the font, break the pattern, and trade the illusion of ease for the power of true learning. 15. The triple yes technique. Negotiation and persuasion do not begin with demands or data points. They begin with establishing a rhythm of agreement. One of the most effective psychological techniques for building this rhythm is the triple Q. Yes, a method that taps into the human brain's deep-seated need for consistency. The strategy is to get the other person to say yes to 3 small, safe, and undeniable statements before you present your actual request. This creates an emotional runway, making it far more likely that they will agree to the final, more significant yes. This isn't about manipulation. It's about building a foundation of alignment and trust. You start the conversation with simple truths they already believe, effectively lowering their defenses from the outset. For example, you might use statements like, "We both want this project to succeed, right?" Or "It seems like we're looking for the best possible outcome for everyone involved." Or even a simple observation like, "It's been a long week." Each yes. Yes, been a long week. Each yes, no matter how small, acts as a psychological handshake. It activates a powerful cognitive bias known as the consistency principle, where the brain, once it has aligned with a certain direction, feels an internal pressure to maintain that course. Reversing direction would create cognitive dissonance, a state of mental discomfort. So when your final request comes, the proposal, the price, the call to action, they are already in a state of agreement and are psychologically predisposed to lean forward rather than pull back. This technique is incredibly versatile, working in sales, conflict resolution, and even parenting. By making someone feel seen and aligned with you on minor points, you create a collaborative atmosphere where they are not just listening, but actively agreeing with you. You are laying the tracks of trust straight toward a successful outcome. 16. Name the emotion to tame it. Emotions often arrive like a flash flood, fast, loud, and overwhelming. They hijack your thoughts, tighten your chest, and before you know it, you are spiraling, shutting down, or saying things you will later regret. In these moments, you feel consumed by the feeling, as if your entire identity has been swallowed by anger, fear, or shame. However, there is a deceptively simple yet neurologically profound way to interrupt this hijack. You name it. This isn't about analyzing the emotion or justifying its existence. It is the simple act of labeling it. This is more than just a self-awareness exercise. It's a biological intervention. Neuroimaging studies have shown that when you verbally label an emotion, saying to yourself, "This is anxiety," or "I am feeling grief," you shift brain activity. The activity moves from the limbic system, the reactive emotional part of your brain, to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic, reason, and self-control. The very act of naming the emotion creates distance. Suddenly, the feeling is not it is something you are experiencing. It's like turning on the light in a dark room. The monster you imagined under the bed is revealed to be just a pile of clothes. Once you can see its shape and give it a name, it becomes less powerful. It is no longer an unbearable, invisible force. It is anger, it is fear, it is envy. Things with names can be understood, managed, and ultimately survive. The next time you feel a surge, try whispering it out loud or writing it down. You will feel your breath slow and your pulse steady. The moment you identify the emotion, you are no longer drowning in it. You are watching it float by. This is the quiet, steady act of reclaiming your emotional life. 17. The power of your right over "I agree." In communication, there is a subtle yet seismic difference between saying "I agree" and "you're right." While both phrases signal alignment, they operate on completely different psychological levels and have dramatically different impacts on the person you are speaking to. When you say, "I agree," the statement remains centered on you. It is about your judgment, your perspective, and your validation of their point. It keeps the power in your hands. However, when you say "you're right," you hand the power over to them. You are not just affirming their idea, you are affirming their identity, their intelligence, and their perception of reality. This validation strikes deep into the core of the human ego, which craves not just to be understood, but to be correct. Giving someone this gift of being right can instantly dissolve their defensiveness and soften their stance. This is a powerful tool in any situation involving potential conflict, from a business negotiation to a marital dispute. By finding a piece of their argument that is genuinely true and validating it with a sincere "you're right," you give them the win before the argument even begins. For example, "You're right. My tone was dismissive." Or "You're right. We could have planned this better." This doesn't mean you concede your entire position. It means you are building a bridge of trust from which a real conversation can begin. You don't lose ground by offering this validation. You gain it. People remember when they are told they are right. It heals, it connects, and it disarms. When spoken authentically, these two simple words can transform a confrontation into a collaboration, demonstrating that you value their perspective as much as your own. 18. Negative visualization. The Stoic path to gratitude. Imagine losing it all. Not in a vague, abstract sense, but in vivid, painful detail. Picture the people you love most gone from your life. Imagine the roof over your head disappearing, your health failing, your freedom being stripped away. Think about the small daily comforts you overlook. Your morning coffee, the ability to walk without pain, the simple act of breathing freely, and imagine them vanished. This is the practice of negative visualization, an ancient and hauntingly beautiful mental hack used by the Stoic philosophers. They did not engage in this exercise to be morbid or to cultivate fear, but to do the opposite, to shock themselves into a profound state of gratitude and presence. Nothing sobers the mind and reorients your priorities faster than confronting the fragility of everything you hold dear. In a culture obsessed with constant striving for more, better. And next, this practice is a radical act of appreciation. When you pause to vividly imagine the absence of what you already possess, a quiet miracle occurs. You return to your present reality with a renewed sense of wonder. The warmth of your bed, the sound of a loved one's voice, the sheer gift of an ordinary, uneventful day. These things, which moments ago were mundane, now feel sacred. The annoying habits of your partner become precious quirks you would miss dearly. The traffic jam becomes a moment to appreciate the ability to travel freely. This practice doesn't add anything new to your life. It simply reveals the immense wealth you already have. Negative visualization is not about cultivating fear. It is about cultivating reverence. It is a powerful reminder that everything you take for granted is temporary, and the only true way to honor it is to appreciate it fully, right now. 19. Clench your left fist to ground yourself in anxiety. When a wave of panic strikes, it doesn't knock politely. It crashes through your defenses. Your heart begins to race, your thoughts spiral into catastrophic loops, and your body stiffens, locking you into survival mode. In these moments, rational thought feels miles away. However, hidden within your own body is a strange and counterintuitive escape hatch. Your left fist. This is not a New Age technique. It is grounded in neuroscience. Your left hand is controlled by the right hemisphere of your brain, the side predominantly responsible for processing emotions, intuition, and creativity. When you are hijacked by anxiety, it is often the left hemisphere, the analytical, verbal, story-spinning side, that is fanning the flames. By consciously and tightly clenching your left fist, you activate the right hemisphere, effectively drawing blood flow and neurological energy away from the analytical storm. This small, invisible physical action can create a massive internal shift. It interrupts the runaway train of anxious thoughts, provides a physical anchor in the present moment, and returns your awareness to your body. Instead of being consumed by fear, you become aware of the physical sensation in your hand. This simple act can help you regain a sense of choice, the choice to pause, to breathe, to speak with intention. In high-stress situations like public speaking, a difficult confrontation, or an exam, this technique is a discreet tool for reclaiming control. You don't need to eliminate the anxiety. You just need to ground it. Your body is not your enemy. It is your ally. Sometimes, all it needs is a clear signal to reset. And that signal can be as simple as one tight, intentional squeeze in the silent chaos. 20. Microscripts. Your armor against social anxiety. For those who struggle with social anxiety, entering a room of strangers can feel like stepping onto a battlefield. A roaring inner voice predicts every possible failure. You'll say the wrong thing. You'll look awkward. You'll be judged and exposed. Under the weight of this catastrophic thinking, your throat tightens, your mind goes blank, and the simplest human interactions become monumental challenges. The solution is not to force yourself to be spontaneously charming, but to arm yourself with a subtle and life-saving tool: microscripts. These are short, pre-rehearsed phrases that you can keep in your back pocket for moments when your brain freezes. They are simple, open-ended lines that can act as a bridge across the terrifying silence. Phrases like, "Hi, I don't think we've met yet. That's a really interesting point. Tell me more or so. What brings you to this event?" are not magic, but they are anchors. When everything inside you is screaming to flee, a microscript gives you something solid to stand on. It overrides the mental static and bypasses the immense pressure to improvise in a state of panic. Just having these phrases prepared can significantly reduce the anticipatory anxiety before a social event, because you know you have a survival plan. The goal is not to sound perfect. It is to create a pathway from isolation to connection. Once that first line is spoken, once the bridge has been crossed, the entire dynamic often softens. The inner storm quiets, and you remember a fundamental truth. Most people are not waiting to judge you. They are simply waiting for an invitation to connect. A microscript is that invitation. It is the key that unlocks the door, reminding you that just one practiced line is all it takes to reclaim your voice. 21. Touch something cold to interrupt panic. There are moments when the world seems to narrow into a tunnel of panic. Your breathing becomes short and shallow. Your hands tremble, and your thoughts race like a runaway train with no brakes. Logic evaporates, and you feel as though you are drowning in a sea of overwhelming sensation, even if nothing in your external environment is actually wrong. In these moments of intense anxiety or dissociation, what you need is not a rational thought, but a raw, physical sensation. Touching something cold is one of the fastest and most primal ways to interrupt this spiral. Whether it's a cold glass of water, a frozen spoon from the freezer, the metal of a door handle, or simply running your hands under cold water, the shock of the temperature forces your nervous system back into the present moment. It sends a clear, undeniable signal to your brain. We are here. Now, this technique is rooted in biology. The sudden sensation of cold stimulates the vagus nerve, a key component of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming the body down after a stress response. It effectively snaps your mind out of its catastrophic thought loops and grounds it in immediate physical reality. You can feel the cold, you can name the sensation, and you can breathe through it. It becomes an anchor when the waves of panic try to pull you under. The cold doesn't care about your racing thoughts or your inner storm. It demands your full attention, and in doing so, it provides a moment of profound relief. When you feel overwhelmed, don't search for the perfect words or a complex solution. Find something cold, grip it, and let it remind you that you are not your panic. You are the body that holds it, and that body knows how to come home. 22. The 6-second pause. Your shield against regret. In the heat of an emotional moment, your reactions can surge like wildfire. A sharp comment, a disappointing email, or a sudden shock can trigger your amygdala, flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline before you even have a chance to think. In this state, you are no longer reasoning. You are reacting from a primal place of fight or flight. Your mouth opens, and you say the thing you will almost certainly regret. Maybe for a few minutes, maybe for years. But what if you could change that entire outcome with just 6 seconds? 6 quiet, burning seconds of pause between the initial impulse and your action. The science behind this is simple but transformative. The initial neurochemical surge of an emotional reaction lasts for only a few seconds. If you can simply sit still, breathe, and wait for that initial wave to pass, it will. And when it does, the more rational, thoughtful version of you returns to the driver's seat. These 6 seconds are not passive. They are a heroic act of self-control. They represent the space where you consciously choose not to escalate a conflict, not to burn a bridge you may later need to cross, and not to inflict a wound you cannot heal. In those moments, you don't have to have the perfect response. You don't have to fix anything. You only have to pause, breathe in, hold, and let the emotion crest and fall like a wave. You can still speak your truth and take necessary action, but you will do so with presence instead of poison, with clarity instead of chaos. This tiny slice of silence becomes a shield, protecting your future from the impulsivity of your present. In that pause, you become stronger than your reaction, embodying the kind of person who doesn't have to apologize for their own behavior later. 23. What would my role model do? When you find yourself stuck in a maze of fear, indecision, or emotional chaos, your own mind can feel like an unreliable narrator. You question your choices, your worth, and your ability to navigate the future. Clarity feels impossibly distant. In these moments, there is a simple mental switch that can cut through the internal noise like a blade. Step outside of yourself and ask, what would my role model do in this exact situation? This isn't just a childish game of pretend. It is a powerful neurological shortcut. By temporarily adopting the mental framework of someone you admire, someone who embodies the courage, wisdom, or resilience you currently lack, you can override your own panicked, emotional response and activate a different, more strategic part of your brain. You shift from survival mode to solution mode, from reaction to vision. The fog lifts because the decision is no longer about your perceived limitation. It doesn't matter who your role model is. A mentor, a historical figure, a character from a book, or even your own future self. When you imagine them confronting your dilemma, a new sense of possibility emerges. They wouldn't spiral in self-doubt. They would act. They wouldn't shrink from the challenge. They would meet it. Suddenly, so can you. The beauty of this technique is that it grants you permission to borrow a strength you feel you don't possess, just long enough to remember that it was inside you all along. The role model you are picturing is a reflection of the qualities you already value and aspire to. You are not asking what they would do. You are accessing the part of yourself that already knows the answer, free from the interference of fear. The answer that comes is from the version of you that never flinched. 24. Self-distancing with third-person self-talk. When your mind begins to spiral and thoughts of fear, shame, or self-doubt take hold, it can feel like being trapped inside a storm with no escape. Everything feels intensely personal, urgent, and overwhelming. You might tell yourself, I can't handle this. And in that moment, it feels like an undeniable truth. However, there is a strange, almost counterintuitive technique that can slice through this emotional noise and create immediate psychological distance. Talk to yourself in the third person. Instead of saying, I'm scared, you say, your name is scared. Instead of, I don't know what to do, you say, your name is figuring this out. It might sound silly, like something a cartoon character would do, but its effect on the brain is profound. This shift in language activates a process of self-distancing, allowing you to step out of the emotional fire and become an objective observer of your own experience. Neuroscience supports this. Studies show that third-person self-talk activates regions of the brain associated with self-control and emotional regulation, similar to when you think about another person. You begin to see yourself not as the problem, but as a person who is dealing with a problem. This subtle shift provides the mental space to breathe, reflect, and be kinder to yourself. You start to speak to yourself with the same guidance and compassion you would offer a dear friend. It feels less like drowning in your own panic and more like watching someone you care about learn to swim. This doesn't eliminate the challenge, but it changes how you respond to it. It softens your internal dialogue and strengthens your resilience, allowing logic and perspective to seep back in. You are still in the storm, but now you are holding the umbrella, becoming the calm voice in your own chaos. 25. The power of a deliberate bad day. There is a brutal and insidious form of exhaustion that doesn't come from overwork, but from the relentless pressure of over-expectation. The unspoken cultural demand to be productive, positive, and on every single day is a quiet poison. It convinces you that rest is a form of failure, and that any moment of slowness is a sign of weakness. This pressure builds until you inevitably break. But what if, instead of fearing these bad days, you chose them? What if you leaned into them deliberately? A deliberate bad day is a preemptive rebellion against burnout. You don't wait for your system to crash. You schedule a controlled collapse. You pick a day, cancel the striving, and consciously give yourself permission to be unproductive. You stay in your softest clothes. You don't clean. You don't perform for anyone. And you let the to-do list gather dust. Not as an act of failure, but as an act of profound self-regulation. Here's the twist. These planned days of surrender don't weaken you. They restore you. When you allow yourself to fall apart on purpose, you stop being afraid of the fall. You learn that you can unravel without completely disappearing, that the world does not collapse when you stop holding it all together for 24 hours. In fact, the opposite happens. You soften. You rest. You hear the parts of yourself that are normally drowned out by the noise of shoulds. The following day, you return to your life, not depleted, but lighter, clearer, and fiercer. This is not because you pushed through the exhaustion, but because you honored it. Some days are not meant to be conquered. They are meant to be surrendered. And choosing to surrender, on your own terms, can be the most powerful form of control you will ever wield. 26. Labeling thoughts as thoughts. Some thoughts arrive like subtle whispers, while others slam into your mind with the force of a scream. I'm not good enough. They all secretly hate me. This will never work. Before you know it, these are not just thoughts. They have become your not just thoughts. Reality. You don't question them. You obey them, allowing them to dictate your worth, your actions, and your future. However, there is a quiet, powerful mental move that can disarm these intrusive thoughts and loosen their suffocating grip. It is the simple practice of labeling them for what they are, just thoughts. Instead of internalizing the statement, I'm a failure, you consciously reframe it as, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. Say it slowly and deliberately, because this is not an act of denial. It is an act of profound distinction. You are separating your core identity from the chaotic weather patterns of your mind. This technique is not just intellectual, it's visceral. The moment you label a thought, you shift from being its victim to being its observer. The thought loses its authority. It is no longer you. It is a transient mental event that you are noticing. This creates a crucial space for awareness. An entire day can be consumed by the feeling of I can't do this, burying you in overwhelm. But if you can shift to, I'm noticing the thought that I can't do this, you are suddenly free. The thought might still be present, but you are no longer trapped inside it. You are watching it float by like a cloud in the sky. In that space, your sense of power and agency returns. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them, names them, and ultimately lets them go. 27. Mental rehearsal before sleep. There exists a sacred and highly suggestible window of time between full wakefulness and the onset of sleep. In this liminal state, your brain becomes more malleable, more open to the narratives and images you feed it. Most people squander these precious final moments of the day by scrolling through social media, worrying about the future, or replaying past regrets, effectively seeding their subconscious with anxiety and distraction. However, if you use this space intentionally, you can plant something far more powerful. You can rehearse the future you want to live. Mental rehearsal before bed is not idle daydreaming. It is a strategic visualization designed to prime your mind for success. As you lie in bed, you close your eyes and play out the next day like a movie in your mind. You see yourself navigating that difficult conversation with calm confidence. You visualize yourself walking into the gym and completing your workout with energy. You imagine yourself speaking clearly and persuasively in your morning meeting. To your nervous system, this vividly imagined experience is indistinguishable from a real memory. It begins to lay down the neural pathways for the desired behavior, preparing your body to follow the script you have already written in your mind. This technique is used by elite athletes, surgeons, and Navy SEALs because it is scientifically proven to lower performance anxiety and boost competence. You are not just hoping for a good day, you are actively training for one. This practice transforms your relationship with sleep. Instead of falling asleep in a state of dread, you drift off in a state of preparation. You wake up not just rested but ready, because you have already successfully navigated the day's challenges in your mind. In the quiet darkness, while the world sleeps in worry, you are rehearsing your own greatness. 28. Listing 3 wins every night. As the day comes to a close, your mind often begins a familiar, destructive ritual. It scans for deficits, meticulously cataloging everything you didn't accomplish, the calls you missed, the mistakes you made, the goals that remain untouched. You fall asleep carrying the invisible but heavy weight of 1,000 tiny failures. This is the fertile ground where burnout takes root, not in the exhaustion itself, but in the persistent absence of self-acknowledgement and the failure to recognize your own progress. To counteract this, you can adopt a simple yet profound practice. List 3 wins every single night. These wins do not need to be monumental achievements. They simply need to be true. I sent that email I was avoiding. I drank enough water today. I got out of bed this morning even when I didn't want to. These are not small accomplishments. They are pieces of evidence. Evidence that you are showing up, that you are trying, that you are moving forward. When you practice this consistently, night after night, a fundamental shift occurs in your brain's programming. The mind that was once trained to hunt for failure begins to actively scan for success throughout the day. You start living differently because you know you will be asked to account for your wins. You look for them, you create them, and you rewire your brain to see progress instead of just problems. This is not about toxic positivity. It is about creating a balanced and accurate narrative of your life. It is about refusing to let the negative aspects of your day have the final word. You end your day by honoring the effort you brought to it. You will sleep lighter and wake up stronger because you are actively reminding yourself that you are not just surviving, you are winning. One small, courageous moment at a time. 29. The eye contact triangle. There is a quality of silence in a conversation that is not awkward or tense, but electric with connection. It occurs when someone holds your gaze just long enough to make you feel truly seen, without making you feel scrutinized. This is the kind of eye contact that builds trust, conveys authority, and creates chemistry. And it rarely happens by accident. It is a crafted skill, and one of the simplest yet most powerful tools for mastering it is the eye contact triangle. This technique is deceptively simple. Instead of staring intensely at a single point on a person's face, such as the bridge of their nose, you slowly and naturally rotate your gaze between their left eye, their right eye, and their mouth. This creates a subtle, rhythmic, triangular motion. This movement gives your gaze a sense of warmth, flow, and life, making you appear deeply focused and present without being intimidating or robotic. People feel the difference, even if they can't articulate why. A triangular gaze subconsciously signals, I am here with you, fully engaged and listening. It breaks the unnerving flatness of a stare and avoids the skittishness of constantly looking away, creating a sense of safety and intimacy. As a result, your words land with greater impact. The magic of this technique is that it also calms your own nerves. By giving your eyes a specific, gentle pattern to follow, you provide an outlet for your nervous energy. This helps to steady your mind, slow your speech, and make you more aware of the connection you are building in real time. Mastering this doesn't require charisma. It requires awareness. Presence is built not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, confident rhythm of your gaze. Triangle by triangle, you can begin to own the room without saying a word. 30. The refrain from have to get to. Your daily life is filled with a litany of silent obligations. I have to wake up early. I have to go to work. I have to answer these emails. I have to take care of the kids. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, your life can start to feel like a checklist of burdens. Even the things you once cherished, the job you dreamed of, the family you built, the body that allows you to move through the world, can begin to feel like responsibilities you are forced to bear. However, a simple linguistic shift can fundamentally change this entire perspective. It is the conscious reframe of replacing I have to with I get to. Suddenly, I have to wake up early becomes I get to wake up early, which means you are alive to see another day. I have to go to work becomes I get to go to work, which means you have a skill that is valued and a role to play. I have to take care of my family becomes I get to take care of my family, a poignant reminder that they are here with you now. This is not a form of toxic positivity or mental gymnastics. It is an act of perspective CPR, breathing life and soul back into routines that have become hollow. This shift doesn't erase hardship or deny challenges. It imbues them with a sense of purpose and gratitude. It is a flash of light inside the daily grind, reminding you that many of the things you complain about today are the very things you might one day pray to have back. Every time you consciously use the phrase I get to, you are reclaiming your agency. You are transforming a duty into a privilege, stepping out of a victim mentality and into a life that is actively chosen. You remember that this life is not something you are forced to endure. It is something you are still here to experience. 31. Power poses. Changing your mind through your body. Before you ever speak a word, before you walk into the interview, deliver the pitch, or enter the room that makes your stomach twist, your body is already communicating for you. Your posture is telling a story about your confidence, your readiness, and your belief in yourself, and the world is listening. But here's the profound twist. Changing your posture doesn't just change how others perceive you. It fundamentally changes how you perceive yourself by altering your own brain chemistry. This is the raw, primal force behind power poses. A power pose is an expansive, open, and unapologetic posture. Think of spreading your arms wide, standing with your shoulders back and chest open, or planting your feet firmly on the ground. It is the physical opposite of shrinking, cowering, or curling in on yourself. When you hold a pose like this for just 2 minutes, a measurable biological shift occurs. Social psychologist Amy Cuddy's research famously showed that adopting these poses decreases cortisol, the hormone of stress, while increasing testosterone, which is linked to confidence and assertiveness. You don't just look more powerful. You chemically and physiologically become more powerful. This isn't about faking it until you make it. It's about embodying a state until it becomes your reality. It's about reclaiming your physical space in a world that often teaches us to take up less. Before a high-stakes moment, find a private space and hold a power pose. You are sending your nervous system a new story, one where you are not an imposter, not invisible, but present, solid, and in control. People respond to the energy you exude before they even process your words. So, give them something undeniable, not because you are pretending, but because you are waking up the power that was always there. 32. Talk slower to command attention. When you feel nervous or eager, you often rush through your sentences as if the words are burning your mouth. You speed up to avoid awkward silences, to sound knowledgeable, or to get the interaction over with as quickly as possible. You fear that slowing down will make you sound uncertain or weak. But what if the opposite were true? What if the very act of slowing down was the key to unlocking true power and authority? Confidence doesn't shout or race. It pauses. It owns the silence and respects the weight of its own words. Talking slower is not just a stylistic choice. It is a powerful nonverbal signal. It tells everyone in the room, I am not in a hurry. I am comfortable here. What I am about to say deserves your attention. When you slow your pace, your words land with greater gravity. People are forced to lean in and listen more closely. Your thoughts sound more deliberate and profound. This technique also has a profound effect on your own internal state. Slower speech acts as a regulator for your nervous system. It quiets the internal storm of anxiety, preventing it from escalating into rambling or panic speech. It creates precious space between your thoughts, allowing for greater clarity and control. When your heart is racing and your mind is spinning, consciously slowing down your rate of speech can physically drag you out of the spiral and anchor you in the present moment. The people who talk the fastest are often the ones who feel the most insecure, as if they will lose their turn to speak if they pause for a breath. But the ones who command the room are those who let the silence breathe around their words. They understand that power isn't about speaking more, but about believing in the words you choose to speak. 33. Anchor your moods with music. There are certain songs that you cannot hear without feeling an immediate, involuntary emotional shift. A few notes can trigger a sudden ache in your chest, a surge of adrenaline in your gut, or a vivid memory that floods your consciousness without warning. This is not a random occurrence. It is a powerful neurological phenomenon known as anchoring. Your brain has the capacity to wire music to specific emotional states so tightly that the song itself becomes a trigger, a reliable shortcut back to that feeling. Once you understand this, you can harness it deliberately to gain greater control over your own emotional landscape. Music ceases to be just background noise and becomes a strategic tool. You can curate playlists not just by genre, but by desired outcome. A playlist to feel unstoppable before a workout, another to slow your heartbeat during a panic attack, one to help you process grief, and another to reset your focus. By consistently pairing a specific song or type of music with a desired emotional state, you create and reinforce this neurological link. Over time, the connection becomes fast, reliable, and deeply physical. You just remember the feeling. Your body relives it. This is how elite athletes prime themselves for competition, how performers ground themselves backstage, and how individuals can claw their way out of states of apathy or anxiety. You no longer have to wait for motivation or peace to randomly find you. You can press play and summon it on command. These curated songs become sacred emotional portals. In the chaos of life, when your mind feels hijacked, they serve as anchors that can pull you back, hold you steady, and remind you of who you are and who you are striving to become. 34. Ask, what am I not seeing? The human mind is a masterful storyteller, but it is not always a truthful one. It constantly stitches together patterns, assumptions, and deeply ingrained beliefs until they form a narrative that feels like objective reality. You believe you are seeing the full picture, but in truth, you are often staring at the world through a narrow keyhole. completely unaware of the vast landscape that lies just outside your limited frame of reference. The key to unlocking a wider, more accurate perspective is a single, powerful, and humbling question. What am I not seeing? This question is not a simple request for more information. It is a direct challenge to your own certainty. It breaks the hypnotic trance of being right and opens a hidden door behind every frustration, every conflict, and every moment of feeling stuck. It whispers that there is more to the story, and that missing piece might change everything. Ask this question when a problem feels unsolvable, when someone's behavior seems inexplicable, or when you are absolutely convinced that you have tried everything. Ask it when you feel like the victim, the hero, or the only one who truly understands the situation. You are not asking it to invalidate yourself, but to grow beyond your current limitations. The truth is, you are always missing something, a hidden motive, a different perspective, a quiet truth you have not yet been willing to face. The moment you crack open the door of curiosity, even just an inch, you invite in clarity, compassion, and unexpected solutions. This question makes you bigger than your ego. It cultivates wisdom where others double down on their rage. Once you begin to ask it earnestly, the world unfolds in ways you never imagined. Because for the first time, you are finally trying to see all of it. 35. Remove just and sorry from your emails. There is a quiet, insidious way we diminish ourselves in our daily communication, one word at a time. It hides in the emails we write, in phrases like just checking in or sorry to bother you. We use these words thinking we are being polite, considerate, and non-intrusive. In reality, we are diluting our own voice and apologizing for our very presence. We are asking for forgiveness for taking up space in someone's inbox. Every time we do this, we subtly reinforce the subconscious belief that we are not entitled to be direct, that our requests are an imposition, and that our time is less valuable than theirs. The word just is a softener. It weakens your statements and turns confident requests into tentative suggestions. The word sorry has become a reflex, used as a preamble even when no harm has been caused and no apology is warranted. Each use carves away at our perceived credibility. But when you consciously decide to remove these words from your professional vocabulary, something radical happens. Your message becomes clear, direct, and unapologetic. Just wanted to ask becomes I'm asking. Sorry for the delay becomes thank you for your patience. You say what you mean, and it lands with a different weight. You sound like someone who values their own time and knows their worth, someone who does not need permission to communicate. You do not need to become aggressive or demanding. You simply need to stop disappearing inside your own sentences. Every word you write sends a signal about how you expect to be treated. Make sure yours says, I belong here, I have something valuable to say, and I am not sorry for saying it. 36. The power of repetition in persuasion. This is the silent, invisible force of repetition, one of the most ancient and powerful tools of belief formation. What gets repeated gets remembered, and what gets remembered begins to feel true. This is not because the idea is inherently brilliant, but because it has become familiar. The human brain is wired with an evolutionary shortcut that equates familiarity with safety and trustworthiness. What we have heard before feels more reliable, even if it is completely unverified. This principle is the bedrock of modern advertising, the engine of political movements, and a weapon for cult leaders. But it can also be used ethically and consciously to make a positive impact. If you want someone to truly understand your vision, believe in your value, or support your mission, you don't need to craft a single perfect sentence. You need to deliver the same core message, clearly and consistently, in different ways, over and over again. This is not about mindless manipulation. It is about creating a structure for belief. It's the rhythm that turns simple words into unshakable anchors in the minds of others. When you say, "We are building something meaningful," once, It's a hopeful statement. When you say it 10 times across 10 different conversations, it becomes a core tenet of your team's belief system. Repetition doesn't just persuade others, it persuades you. It rewires your own identity and solidifies your purpose. Repeat your vision, repeat your worth, and repeat your truth until it becomes louder than your fear. And eventually, the world will start to echo it back to you. 37. Time box your negative emotions. Pain, grief, and anxiety love to exist in an open-ended, infinite space. When these difficult emotions arrive, they don't knock politely. They barge in and make themselves at home, threatening to stay for hours, days, or even years if you let them. You feel as though you are drowning, with no end in sight. But what if you could give your emotions space to breathe, without letting them take over your entire life? What if you set a timer? This is the practice of time boxing your emotions. It means you consciously and deliberately set aside a specific contained window of time to feel everything fully. You tell yourself, for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to let myself feel this anger completely. I will not suppress it, and I will not judge it. You can scream into a pillow, cry, journal, or rage. But when the timer goes off, you consciously transition to a different activity. This is not an act of suppression. It is an act of precision. It is an act of precision. It is a way of honoring your feelings and giving them the attention they deserve. But on your terms, you are acknowledging that your pain is valid, but you are also declaring that it is not in charge of your entire day. This practice is in form of emotional self-leadership. After the timer ends, you get up, walk, splash water on your face, or play a song that shifts your energy. You are signaling to your nervous system that the storm had its moment, but now the sky belongs to you again. Time boxing reminds you that you are not your sadness or your rage. You are the container that is strong enough to hold these feelings without falling apart. And that strength, built one-time session at a time, changes everything. 38. Use an instead of but. A single 3-letter word has the power to either build a bridge or erect a wall in any conversation. That word is but. It sneaks into our sentences like a thief, instantly erasing whatever positive statement came before it. When you say, I love your idea, but you did a great job on this project, but the praise immediately vanishes. The listener's brain discards the compliment and braces for the criticism that is sure to follow. The word but cancels, negates, and divides, creating an adversarial dynamic, even when that isn't your intention. Over time, its habitual use can erode trust and create defensive walls where open communication should be. Now, consider the simple act of replacing but with, and I love your idea, and I have a thought on how we could build on it. You did a great job on this project, and I see an opportunity for us to make it even stronger next time. Feel the immediate shift in tone. The word and is inclusive and expansive. It holds space for two ideas to coexist without one invalidating the other. It doesn't pit your feedback against their contribution. It weaves them together. This tiny linguistic switch turns criticism into collaboration and conflict into a conversation. It disarms defensiveness because people feel that their initial point has been heard and acknowledged, not dismissed. They remain open, curious, and willing to engage with what you have to say next. Use this in your arguments, meetings, and even in your parenting, and is a generous word. It says, I see your truth, and I would like to add mine. It creates space, and in that space, better relationships and more effective communication can begin to flourish. 39. Habit stacking with anchor tasks. Forming a new habit can often feel like trying to climb a steep, slippery mountain barefoot. You start with strong intentions, but somewhere between your goal and your daily reality, your momentum fades. Life gets busy, resistance kicks in, and the new behavior fails to stick. But what if building habits didn't require immense willpower, but rather a clever sense of rhythm? This is the principle behind habit stacking, a revolutionary technique that involves attaching a new, desired habit to an existing, automatic one. An existing habit that you perform without fail every day, like brushing your teeth, making your morning coffee, or locking your front door, is called an anchor task. These anchors are non-negotiable and already wired into your brain. By linking a new habit to one of these solid foundations, the new habit borrows the anchor's automaticity. You don't have to remember to do it. The anchor task itself becomes the trigger. The formula is simple. After a current anchor habit, I will new habit. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 2 minutes. Or, as my coffee is brewing, I will do 10 push-ups. Or right after I lock my door to leave for work, I will send 1 networking text. This method works because the brain loves predictability and triggers. When a new behavior consistently shows up at the same time and in the same context, the neural wiring solidifies much faster. This isn't about pushing harder. It's about designing a smarter system. These small stacks compound over time, building trust in yourself not because you are perfect, but because you keep showing up, quietly and consistently, in rhythm with the life you already live. 40. Write a fake Amazon review for your day. Our days often blur together, one folding into the next like a stack of unlabeled pages. We move through a cycle of waking, working, scrolling, and sleeping, often arriving at the end of the day with a vague sense of wondering where all the time went. But what if you paused for a moment and reviewed your day as if it were a product you had purchased online? What if you wrote a fake Amazon review for your own life? 3 stars. The initial setup was slow and buggy. Mornings are rough. But the afternoon walk feature was a surprisingly effective upgrade. Would consider using again, but hoping for better battery life tomorrow. Or perhaps 5 star. Came with unexpected features like a meaningful phone call with an old friend and a perfectly brewed cup of tea. The anxious thought loop was a bit repetitive, but the sunset graphic was stunning. Highly recommend. This exercise sounds ridiculous, but it is a powerful tool for mindfulness and reflection. When you frame your day as a review, you are forced to step back and become an objective observer, rather than just a passive participant. You have to hunt for the specific details, the tiny wins, the subtle frustrations, the moments that mattered. Even a 2-star day becomes a story worth telling, a data point worth learning from. This practice is journaling disguised as humor, mindfulness in the form of satire. It gives your life a headline, a narrative structure that prevents it from simply slipping through your fingers unnoticed. By taking a moment to rate, review, and reclaim your day, you begin to witness your own life with greater clarity, humor, and appreciation for every messy, beautiful, and fragmented piece of 41. Replace motivation with systems. You wait for the right feeling to strike before you begin. You wait for the spark of motivation, the surge of momentum, the sudden push of inspiration. But motivation is a fickle and unreliable liar. It shows up when tasks are easy and appealing, and it vanishes the moment you face resistance, boredom, or difficulty. If you build your life on the hope of motivation, you are building a house on a foundation of sand. What you truly need is not more willpower, but a robust system, a repeatable, structured rhythm that operates regardless of how you feel. Systems do not ask for your permission. They do not check your mood. They do not require inspiration. They simply run. A system is laying out your gym clothes the night before. So in the morning, you don't have to think, you just dress. A system is committing to write for 15 minutes at the same time every day, whether the words feel brilliant or broken. The fundamental truth is that you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Motivation may be what gets you started, but it is your system that ensures you finish. This is because a system doesn't rely on the strength of who you are in the moment. It relies on the intelligence of the choices you made ahead of the moment. That design is what saves you when your energy is low and your resolve is wavering. You stop needing to win a mental battle with yourself every morning. You just follow the predetermined steps. You stop chasing fleeting bursts of energy and instead trust the schedule. You stop wondering if you are strong enough because you have built strength and consistency directly into the architecture of your day. 42. Cold showers for a mood reset. There are times when your brain feels like a room with no oxygen, stale, heavy, and buzzing with a low-grade hum of anxiety, sadness, or sheer mental fog. You try to think your way out, distract yourself, or breathe your way to clarity, but nothing seems to cut through the oppressive atmosphere. And then, you step into a cold shower, and everything slams into a state of immediate, shocking presence. Your breath catches, your mind goes completely still, and for a few moments, you are no longer thinking. You are simply intensely awake. Cold water does not ask for your permission. It demands your full attention. This physiological shock to your nervous system forces you into the now, flooding your brain with a powerful cocktail of adrenaline, norepinephrine, and endorphins. These are not just buzzwords. They are the chemical agents that can dramatically shift your entire mood landscape. The dullness of depression, the racing thoughts of anxiety, and the heavy blanket of lethargy can all be momentarily washed away, replaced by a raw, primal alertness. It is an inner fire that few other stimuli can ignite. You may step out of the shower shaking and shivering, but you are back. You are back in your body, back in the present moment, and free from the thought loop that had you trapped. While a cold shower won't solve the root cause of your problems, it provides a powerful, full-body reset when you feel stuck. It is a biological override, ancient, primal, and yes, brutal. But that brutality carves out a new space inside you. A space for a fresh breath, a new thought, and a renewed sense of momentum. You chose to step into discomfort on purpose and discovered you could withstand it. That knowledge changes you. 43. Smile with your eyes. There's the smile that simply moves your lips, a social gesture of politeness. And then there is the smile that moves people, the one that communicates genuine warmth and connection before a single word is spoken. You've seen it and felt it in a stranger who made you feel instantly safe, or in a friend whose expression conveyed everything you needed to know. The authenticity of this smile is not found in the mouth, but in the eyes. It is the subtle crinkling at the corners, the flicker of warmth that tells someone, I see you, and I am glad you are here. This is known as the Duchenne smile, and it is the one your nervous system recognizes as real. When you smile with just your mouth, it can be perceived as social camouflage. But when your eyes light up, your entire face softens, and your energy shifts, sending an unspoken message that lowers defenses and builds instant rapport. People do not feel observed, they feel welcomed, and the human body instinctively knows the difference, leaning towards sincerity and away from performance. This kind of smile does not require you to be in a state of euphoric happiness, it requires you to be present. You must allow the feeling, whether it's appreciation, amusement, or simple kindness, to land in your chest before it travels to your face. The eyes do not lie. They reveal when a smile is empty, and they glow when your spirit is speaking through them. In a world saturated with forced politeness and digital disconnection, a real smile, one with soul in it, is a revolutionary act. It is grounding, disarming, and healing. So, when you meet someone, look them in the eye and smile, not to impress, but to invite. Let your eyes say what words never could. You matter. 44. Ask what would make this 1% better. Perfectionism is a seductive liar. It masquerades as a commitment to high standards, but its true function is to paralyze you with fear. It tells you that nothing is worth doing unless it can be done flawlessly. that if you can't completely overhaul your life in a single day, you might as well remain stuck. This all-or-nothing thinking is the enemy of progress. But there is a gentler, more effective question that can cut through this noise and get you into motion. What would make this just 1% better? This question doesn't demand a massive transformation. It asks for a tiny, almost imperceptible shift. It's a single breath, a small adjustment, a barely visible change that nudges you out of paralysis and into action. The pressure to be perfect is replaced with a gentle curiosity about what is possible right now. What would make this messy room 1% cleaner? What would make this tense meeting 1% more human? What would make my mood 1% lighter? The power of this question lies in its scale. A 1% improvement is so small that your brain's resistance mechanisms can't argue with it. It's undeniably doable. You are not demanding greatness from yourself. You are simply inviting movement. And once you start moving, momentum begins to build. These small shifts compound over time. The day you were going to waste is rescued by one small, productive act. The negative thought spiral is interrupted by a single positive action. This question is humble enough to be used when you are in a state of burnout, yet sharp enough to be applied to your most ambitious goals. It doesn't ask you to fix your entire life. It just asks you to touch it, to engage with it in a small, meaningful way. And when you do that, day after day, you will eventually look up and realize that everything has changed. 45. Postpone temptations by 10 minutes. You feel the pull, a sharp, urgent, and seemingly irresistible craving. The urge to scroll through your social media feed, to open the refrigerator for a snack you don't need, to light the cigarette, or to say the cutting remark you know you will regret. Temptation rarely taps on your shoulder politely. It crashes in like a wave, convincing you that giving in right now is the only way to find relief, peace, or escape. For a fleeting moment, it might even work. But then comes the inevitable crash. The guilt, the shame, the lost time, the broken promise to yourself. To break this cycle, you don't need superhuman willpower. You need a simple, strategic tool. The next time the urge strikes, postpone it for just 10 minutes. You don't have to fight it or tell yourself no. You simply say later. Then, set a timer, get up, and change your environment. Walk into another room. Drink a glass of water, or step outside. In those 10 minutes of delay, something powerful happens. The intense emotional spike of the craving begins to fade. The part of your brain that was screaming for an immediate dopamine hit quiets down just enough for your rational mind to whisper a gentle reminder of your long-term goals. This isn't about self-denial. It's about reclaiming the critical space between impulse and action. This is the space where your power of choice lives. Most temptations do not need to be conquered in a heroic battle. They simply need to be outlived. They simply need to be outlived. That 10-minute delay is your quiet rebellion against your autopilot programming. Sometimes you may still give in, and that's okay. But often, you will find that by the time the 10 minutes are up, the urge has lost its power, and you realize you wanted something deeper all along. 46. Visualize failing dramatically. Our culture is obsessed with visualizing success. We are told to create vision boards, manifest our dreams, and focus relentlessly on achieving our goals. But sometimes, the most powerful tool for unlocking your potential is not to imagine your greatest triumph, but to vividly and unflinchingly visualize your most catastrophic failure. This isn't about cultivating a negative mindset. It's about inoculating yourself against the fear that is holding you back. The vague, undefined fear of failure is often far more paralyzing than the reality of failure itself. It lurks in the shadows of your mind. A monstrous, what if that prevents you from taking risks? By dragging this fear into the light and examining it in excruciating detail, you strip it of its mystery and its power. Imagine the presentation flopping spectacularly, the business launch tanking, the relationship ending in public humiliation. Go there. Feel the shame, the panic, the embarrassment. Then, after you have fully experienced this imagined disaster, ask the most important question. And then what? What would you do the day after? You would grieve. You would feel the pain. And then you would get up. You would call a friend, take a breath, and figure out your next step. You would not shatter or disappear. You would adapt and heal. The moment you prove to yourself, even just in your imagination, that you can survive the fall, the fear loses its grip. This is not masochism. It is a rehearsal for resilience. When the real moments of challenge arrive, and your voice shakes or things go sideways, you will be ready. Not because you are fearless, but because you have already walked through the fire in your mind and know that it will not destroy you. 47. Celebrate micro wins publicly. You hold your breath, waiting for the big momentous achievement, the promotion, the book deal, the finished project, before you allow yourself to feel a sense of pride. You tell yourself that your small daily efforts are not significant enough to be acknowledged, not real enough to be seen. But this silence starves your brain of the very thing it needs to keep going. Momentum. Momentum is not built on the mountaintop. It is built in every small, messy, and unglamorous step taken along the climb. This is why you must learn to celebrate your micro-wins, and you must do it out loud. Share with a friend that you finally wrote one perfect sentence. Tell your partner that you cleaned out your cluttered inbox. Post about the small progress you made on a personal goal. This is not about seeking validation or feeding your ego. It is about creating the emotional oxygen that turns effort into sustained energy. When you share your small victories with others, even just with one trusted person, you invite encouragement, create accountability, and foster a deeper sense of connection. People are not waiting for your perfection. They are inspired by your realness, by your tiny, brave acts of moving forward. And when you celebrate these moments, you give them permission to do the same, building a sacred culture of mutual support and momentum. Your brain is wired to repeat behaviors that are rewarded. If you only reward the final, monumental outcome, you will grow to resent the long, arduous process. But if you reward the simple act of showing up, of starting, of trying, you will fall in love with the climb itself. Every win, no matter how small, is proof that you are still in the fight. And that is worth everything. 48. The 2-minute rule. Procrastination doesn't always roar. Often it whispers. It tells you that a task is too small to be worth doing right now, or just large enough to be daunting. You glance at the dirty coffee mug on your desk, the unread email that requires a simple reply, the form that needs to be filled out. You tell yourself you'll get to it later, but later is a breeding ground for anxiety, and soon you find yourself drowning in a sea of tiny, undone things that quietly erode your peace of mind. The fix for this is the 2-minute rule, a simple but profoundly effective principle. If a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it immediately. Don't schedule it. Don't add it to your to-do list. Just do it now. This rule isn't primarily about time management. It's about energy management. Every unfinished task, no matter how small, remains an open tab in your mental browser, consuming cognitive resources. Each one whispers, "I'm still here, waiting for you." The more tabs you leave open, the slower and more sluggish your mental processing becomes. By acting immediately, washing the cup, sending the reply, you close the loop. This provides a small but satisfying jolt of accomplishment, which builds momentum and reinforces a new identity. You shift from being someone who delays and postpones to someone who acts and completes. This trains your brain to stop negotiating with itself. There is no overthinking, no drama, just action. The moment you see a 2-minute task, you move. This pattern becomes ingrained as muscle memory, and over time, your life becomes lighter, clearer, and less haunted by the ghosts of small things left undone. You may not be able to conquer your entire world in a day, but you can always wash the dish. 49. Rehearse stressful conversations in your head. There is a moment just before a difficult conversation, the confrontation, the apology, the setting of a boundary, where your body prepares for battle. Your pulse quickens, your words become tangled in your throat, and your mind spirals through a highlight reel of disastrous potential outcomes. You rehearse the failure. This is precisely why you must learn to rehearse with purpose, not to obsess over the negative, but to train for a positive outcome. What you truly fear is not just what the other person might say, but your own inability to respond effectively in the heat of the moment. Mental rehearsal changes that. This is not about scripting a perfect, rigid dialogue. It is about wiring your nervous system for calm and clarity. You sit with yourself, close your eyes, and walk through the entire conversation. You hear your own voice, calm and steady, saying what needs to be said. You imagine their reactions, their anger, their misunderstanding, their defensiveness, and then you practice staying grounded through it all. You rehearse navigating the chaos, not to control their response, but to prevent yourself from being derailed by it. The brain does not clearly differentiate between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. So, when the actual moment arrives, your nervous system has a sense of familiarity. You have already walked this path in your mind. You have already heard yourself hold the line, stay compassionate, and clarify your truth. Something inside you remembers, I know how to do this. You become less reactive and more rooted, less focused on being liked and more focused on being understood. You don't panic when things get messy, because you plan for messy. Confidence is not born in the heat of the moment. It is built in the quiet preparation that comes before it. 50. The brain dump and walk away. There are times when your mind becomes a war zone, flooded with racing thoughts, looping worries, and a tangled mess of what-ifs. The inner noise becomes so loud that you can no longer hear the silence. You try to sort through it all in your head to organize the chaos, but the more you think, the more entangled it becomes. In these moments, you need to do the one thing that can provide immediate relief. Dump it all onto paper, and then walk away. This is not an exercise in analysis or problem solving. It is an act of externalization. Take a piece of paper and a pen, and let your brain bleed onto the page. Write down every fear, every half-formed sentence, every angry draft, every painful truth. Do not worry about grammar, structure, or coherence. The goal is simply to get it out. The moment these thoughts leave the confines of your mind and become tangible ink on a page, they stop holding you hostage. Writing gives the chaos a shape, a border, a boundary. It turns the overwhelming internal storm into something visible and separate from you. It is no longer spiraling. It is just a page filled with words. And then comes the most critical step. You walk away. Do not edit it. Do not edit. Do not try to solve the problems you've just written down. That part can come later, if it's even necessary. For now, your only job is to release, not to resolve. In the mental space that you have just created, something sacred can finally enter. Quiet, relief, and the clarity that only comes when your mind is no longer choking on its own storm. You are not your thoughts. You are the sky. The paper is now holding the weather. 51. Physical tokens for deep focus. The modern world is in a constant battle for your attention. Notifications, noises, and a relentless stream of internal and external distractions all claw for a piece of your mind. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try to just focus, your attention slips through your fingers like smoke. To combat this, you can use a simple, primal technique to anchor your mind. A physical token. This is a real, tangible object that you touch, hold, or place in your line of sight every time you need to enter a state of deep work. It could be a specific coin, a smooth stone, a particular pen, or a small, weighted object on your desk. This isn't about magic. It's about creating a powerful psychological trigger. Each time you reach for your token, you are sending a clear, tactile signal to your brain. It is time to focus now. Over time, your brain begins to associate that specific physical sensation with stillness, presence, and deep concentration. The habit becomes a reflex. It's the same principle used by monks with their meditation beads or athletes with their pre-game rituals. You are training your mind through the body. When your thoughts begin to scatter, the token serves as a lighthouse, a physical reminder of your intention. You feel its weight in your fingers. You see it beside you, and it gently guides you back. Physical tokens cut through the mental noise in a way that abstract motivation never can. They carry the weight of your intention, your energy, and your memory. Even on days when you feel tired or overwhelmed, the token whispers, "Remember who you are when you are focused." And that whisper might be all you need to begin. 52. Finish a day with one unfinished task. We are psychologically wired to crave completion. Ticking off that final box on the to-do list, closing all the tabs on our browser, and ending the day with everything neatly done feels clean, satisfying, and safe. But what if that very feeling of satisfaction is what sabotages your momentum for the following day? What if the secret to starting strong is to deliberately leave something undone? Finishing your workday with one small, unfinished task is not a sign of laziness. It is a brilliant psychological strategy. It creates a subtle, positive tension and a sense of forward momentum that carries over into the next morning. It gives your brain a specific, easy hook to grab onto the moment you wake up. Instead of facing the daunting emptiness of a blank slate, you are stepping back into a process that is already in motion. The resistance to starting, which is often the hardest part, is significantly lowered. This technique was famously used by author Ernest Hemingway, who would often stop writing for the day mid-sentence. He knew that this would ensure he knew exactly where to begin the next morning, allowing him to bypass the dreaded writer's block. It's like leaving a breadcrumb trail for your future self, a soft promise that tomorrow already has a clear direction. This can be anything. A half-written email, a project left in the middle of a flow state, or a simple note outlining your next step. Don't close the loop. Keep the door slightly ajar. Let your subconscious mind simmer on it overnight. You will be stunned at how much easier it is to dive back into your work when the path has already been cleared. The next day doesn't start when you wake up. It starts with what you chose to leave behind. 53. Reread journal entries from 6 months ago. You feel stuck. You think you haven't grown, that you are still spinning your wheels, chasing the same goals, and wrestling with the same fears. Progress can feel utterly invisible when you are living inside it day by day. But if you want to see the truth, open a journal from 6 months ago. Suddenly, the evidence of your evolution screams off the page. You will meet a version of yourself who was drowning in a problem you have since solved, who was heartbroken over a loss you have since healed from, who was consumed by doubts that no longer hold any power over you. Rereading old journal entries is like time travel for the soul. It is a mirror with a memory, reflecting not just where you were, but how far you have come. It breaks the powerful illusion of stagnation. You realize you have been becoming, transforming, and growing this entire time. It's not always a comfortable experience. Sometimes you will cringe at your old thought patterns. Sometimes you will feel a fresh ache for the person you were. But that ache is proof that you have moved on, that you have healed in places you forgot were even broken. You have learned lessons that felt impossible back then. You also get to reclaim parts of yourself you may have forgotten. Dreams you shelved, passions you abandoned, and truths you whispered only in private. Your past self becomes a powerful witness, not of your failures, but of your resilience. When you feel like giving up, that old ink will serve as a stark reminder that you have already survived storms you once thought would last forever. Your growth is not a myth. It's written in your own handwriting, waiting for you to see it. 54. Label your coping patterns. When life applies pressure, When stress hits, shame rises, or the world feels too loud, you cope. We all do. We might cope with food, with mindless scrolling, with alcohol, with overworking, or with pretending that everything is fine. The coping mechanism itself is not the problem. The problem arises when it runs your life in disguise, when your patterns wear a mask and whisper to you, "This is just who I am." But here is the truth. If you can label it, you can lead it. You can. The simple act of naming your coping mechanisms strips them of their invisibility and their power. You can learn to observe yourself and say, this is my avoider pattern showing up, or that's my inner achiever in panic mode, or here comes the numbnesses again. You are shining a flashlight into the dark corners of your mind and gently saying, "I see you." This act of labeling does not shame the behavior. It separates it from your core identity. It turns unconscious patterns into observable characters and automatic reflexes into valuable signals. When you can name something, it loses its control over you. You stop being the stress eater or the workaholic and start becoming someone who notices the urge to escape and then consciously chooses what to do next. Well, you cannot change what you have not yet defined. You cannot heal what you are still pretending is a fundamental part of your personality. But once you can say, "This is the part of me that shuts down when I feel unsafe," you are no longer trapped inside the pattern. You are standing outside of it, with your hand on the doorknob and the power to walk a new way. 55. Deep breathing as a biological reset. The world moves at a frantic pace, and your breath often follows suit. In moments of panic, stress, or even silent, low-grade overwhelm, your breathing becomes shallow, clipped, and barely there. You may not even notice it happening. You just feel off, anxious, and disconnected. But beneath every racing heart, every clenched jaw, and every sleepless night, there is a powerful, ancient rhythm waiting to reset your entire system. Your own breath. The practice of deep, diaphragmatic breathing is not a fluffy wellness platitude. It is a direct biological intervention. When you breathe deeply and slowly, allowing your belly to expand on the inhale and making your exhale longer than your inhale, you send a clear and powerful message directly to your vagus nerve and your autonomic nervous system. We are safe. Inhale. Response. The parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, activates. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your muscles unclench, and the logical part of your brain comes back online. You do not have to think your way out of stress. You can literally breathe your way out of it. The power of this is staggering. You can fundamentally shift your physiological and psychological state in under a minute. You can interrupt a mounting anxiety attack, ground yourself in a chaotic present moment, and create a critical space between an external stimulus and your reaction to it. You stop spiraling and start pausing. One deep breath won't solve all your problems, but it can stop a fight before it starts, prevent a rash decision, and reconnect you with your own sense of power and control. It is the tool you have had your entire life. You just need to remember to use it. 56. The power of 10 minutes of meditation. The modern world is relentlessly loud. Notifications, deadlines, arguments, and a constant internal monologue of self-doubt all compete for your mental bandwidth. Your mind becomes a crowded, chaotic room where everyone is shouting over everyone else. You search for focus, peace, and clarity, but all you find is more static. What if the solution was not to do more, but to do less? What if the most radical and powerful act you could perform was to simply sit still for 10 minutes? That's all it takes to shift the entire rhythm of your nervous system. To sit with your back straight, your eyes softly closed, and your attention gently resting on your breath. The goal of meditation is not to empty your mind, an impossible task, but to witness it. It is about creating a space between the relentless noise and the you that is aware of the noise. In those 10 minutes, you are introduced to the part of yourself that isn't panicked, performative, or afraid. You meet the quiet stillness, the core truth that exists beneath all the stories your mind tells you. Your heart rate slows, your body softens, and you remember a fundamental truth. You are not your thoughts. You are not your to-do list, and you are not your fears. You are the silent observer, watching it all pass by. The first few minutes will likely feel uncomfortable. Your mind will itch to move, to check your phone, to flee the silence. That is the practice. Every moment you sit through that resistance, you are strengthening a muscle of awareness and self-regulation. 10 minutes a day is not a luxury. It is a necessary act of reclaiming yourself in a world that constantly tries to pull you away. 57. Count backward by sevens. Sometimes, anxiety doesn't whisper. It roars. It seizes you with a sudden, overwhelming force. Your chest tightens, your vision narrows, and your thoughts begin to race in a catastrophic loop. You try to reason with the panic, to soothe it with logic, but it's like trying to have a calm conversation in the middle of a hurricane. In that moment, your logical brain is offline. You don't need to outthink the panic. You need to hijack it. One of the fastest and most effective ways to do this is a simple, yet surprisingly difficult cognitive task. Count backward from 100 by sevens. 100, 93, 86, 79. It feels strange and requires concentration. That is precisely the point. This exercise forces your brain to shift gears. It must disengage from the emotional spiraling part of your mind, the amygdala, and activate the prefrontal cortex, which handles focus, logic, and sequential tasks. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake or how far you get. What matters is the act of redirection. You are breaking the pattern of panic and giving your brain a different, more demanding job to do. The beauty of this technique is that it is purely mechanical. No positive thinking is required. You don't have to believe it will work. You just have to start counting. As you focus on the numbers, your breathing naturally begins to regulate, and your awareness is pulled from the imagined future catastrophe back into the present moment. This is a trick used in trauma therapy and by high-performance coaches because it works. It gives your mind something concrete to do other than panic, and in doing so, you reclaim your sense of agency. You remember that you are not your fear. You are the one doing the math. 58. Focus on what you can control. When life feels chaotic and uncertain, when plans fall apart, people disappoint you, or the world refuses to cooperate, the instinctive reaction is to grasp for control. You look everywhere for something solid to hold on to, trying to influence outcomes and manage the behavior of others. But the harder you grip the things that are outside of your control, the more powerless and anxious you feel. This is the starting point of a downward spiral. The antidote, a core tenet of Stoic philosophy, is to stop it cold by radically shrinking your focus. You do not need to control everything. You only need to exert influence over the things that are truly yours. Your breath, your effort, your attitude, your responses, and your choices. These are your domain. No one can take them from you. When you consciously bring your attention back to these elements, you immediately rediscover your power. Everything else, the timing of events, the outcome of your efforts, the reactions of other people, the noise of the world, is like the wind. You can scream at it, curse it, or chase it, but you cannot control it. All you can do is adjust your own sails and keep moving. Focusing on what you can control is not an act of resignation. It is an act of liberation. It is about drawing a clear boundary around your energy and refusing to leak your soul into battles that were never yours to win. In every moment of chaos, there is always at least one thing you can control. Find it. Do it. Own it. That one small act will ground you, rebuild your sense of agency, and empower you to take the next right step. This is how peace is found, not by mastering the storm, but by mastering your own anchor. 59. The Pomodoro Technique. You sit down at your desk with the best of intentions, but suddenly, everything else in the world becomes more urgent than the task at hand. Your phone buzzes, your mind wanders, and your energy dissipates. The task itself feels vast and overwhelming, and your brain craves the instant gratification of any distraction. What you need in this moment is not more motivation, but a sense of containment. This is the genius of the Pomodoro Technique. It doesn't ask you to conquer a mountain. It just asks you to take one manageable step. You set a timer for 25 minutes and commit to working on a single task with undivided attention for that short block of time. No distractions. No switching tasks. No checking your phone. You are telling your brain, we just have to get through this one window. Magically, the task stops feeling infinite and becomes a short, focused sprint. When the timer rings, you stop. You take a mandatory 5-minute break. You get up, stretch, walk around, and completely disengage from the work. These cycles of focus bursts followed by short breaks rewire your brain. You begin to crave the rhythm and structure, which creates a sense of urgency without panic. You stop waiting to feel like it and start showing up in manageable, predictable waves. This technique also builds a profound sense of trust with yourself. Each completed 25-minute session is a promise kept, a small victory that fuels the next one. You are no longer chained to your desk for hours, battling distraction and guilt. You are dancing with your time, engaging with it in a way that is both productive and sustainable. The Pomodoro Technique is about reclaiming your focus from chaos, 25 minutes at a time. 60. Set anti-goals. We are all taught to chase goals. We are encouraged to visualize what we want, to dream of the perfect life, and to strive for the peak version of ourselves. But sometimes, the most profound clarity does not come from knowing what you want to move toward, but from knowing with absolute certainty what you want to move away from. This is the power of setting anti-goals. Anti-goals are a clear, defined list of the feelings, situations, and outcomes you refuse to experience again. They are born from your past pain and serve as a powerful compass for your future. Examples might include, I will never again work in a job that makes me feel dread on Sunday nights. I will never again be in a relationship where I feel I have to shrink myself to be loved. I will never again sacrifice my physical health for a deadline. These are not just complaints about bad moments. They are the foundational principles of the life you are determined to build. When you define your anti-goals, something powerful happens to your decision-making process. You stop blindly chasing someone else's definition of success and start building strong guardrails that protect your sanity, your energy, and your joy. Every new opportunity, every request for your time, and every potential next step gets measured against these non-negotiables. If a new venture smells like future burnout, if a relationship feels like a familiar pattern of self-betrayal, you don't compromise. You walk away. This isn't negativity. It is the highest form of clarity. It is taking the pain you have lived through and using it as a blueprint, not for revenge, but for your own liberation. The life you truly want is often hiding in the shadow of the one you will never repeat. 61. Smile before you speak on the phone. Before you utter a single word on a phone call, before your voice even travels through the line, something unspoken is already shaping the entire interaction. The expression on your face. You might assume that since the other person can't see you, your physical demeanor is irrelevant. But the truth is, they can feel your smile. The difference in your tone, your warmth, and your energy is palpable, and it all begins the moment you consciously curve your lips upward. Smiling before you speak is not about being fake or inauthentic. It is a deliberate act of setting your internal frequency. When you smile, even a slight, gentle one, your body releases a cascade of positive neurochemicals like dopamine and endorphins. This has a physical effect on your vocal cords, causing them to relax. Your breath deepens, and your voice naturally takes on a tone that is calmer, kinder, and more inviting. You sound more human, more alive, and like someone others genuinely want to listen to. This simple, 1-second habit can powerfully soften tension and disarm defensiveness. It can change how someone receives your sales pitch, your apology, or even your bad news. This is because the words themselves are only part of the message. The energy behind them is what truly lands. The person on the other end of the line doesn't just hear what you say. They feel who you are in that moment. In a world where so much communication is text-based and devoid of emotional nuance, your voice becomes one of your most powerful tools for connection. Let your smile shape your sound, and watch how people lean in and listen, without ever knowing why. 62. Don't argue when hungry. There is a moment in a disagreement when everything suddenly feels louder and more charged. The smallest comment is interpreted as a personal attack, and the tiniest mistake feels like an unforgivable betrayal. You think you are furious. You think you are deeply hurt. But beneath the emotional storm, the true culprit is often something embarrassingly simple and human. You are hungry. A hungry brain does not make peace. It makes war. Hunger doesn't just create a gnawing sensation in your stomach. It hijacks your mind. As your blood sugar levels drop, your mood plummets, and the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for emotional regulation, goes aflame. You become hyper-reactive, inventing negative tone where there is none, and escalating minor tensions into full-blown crises. You are utterly convinced that your anger is justified, because in that moment, it feels viscerally true, but it's not. Well, it's biology dressed up as rage. Arguing while hungry is like trying to have a delicate, rational conversation during a hurricane. You are too raw, too frantic, and too depleted to seek resolution. You crave release, not understanding, and the words that come out are often sharper and crueler than you intend. The solution is not complicated. Eat. Even just a few bites of something can be enough to stabilize your body and allow your mind to follow. Before you engage in a difficult conversation, pause, breathe. Step away long enough to feed the part of you that is screaming for fuel beneath the anger. You are not weak for being affected by hunger. You are a biological creature. True strength lies in knowing your patterns and choosing to interrupt them before they inflict unnecessary damage on your relationships. 63. Say, let me get back to you. There is an immense and often unspoken pressure that comes with being asked a question on the spot. An expectation exists for you to have an immediate answer, to make a decision now, to react instantly. In the heat of that moment, most people panic. They say yes too quickly out of a desire to please, or they say no too hastily out of fear. They overpromise, underthink, and then carry the heavy weight of their impulsive choices long after the moment has passed. However, there is a simple, powerful phrase that can cut through this manufactured urgency. Restore your clarity and return the power to your hands. Let me get back to you. This phrase is simple, respectful, and unshakable. It creates a sacred space where pressure once lived. You do not need to offer a lengthy explanation or a defensive apology. You simply draw a clear boundary between their request and your response, between their timeline and your own truth. When you use this phrase, you instantly shift the dynamic. You are not signaling hesitation. You are signaling thoughtfulness. You are buying yourself the invaluable time to reflect, to check in with your own needs and values, and to ensure that your answer is rooted in alignment, not in people-pleasing, guilt, or anxiety. This phrase is a powerful tool in business negotiations, in personal relationships, and in any uncomfortable conversation. It is the armor that protects you from reactive commitments and the bridge that carries you toward intentional ones. It tells the world, I take my words and my commitments seriously, and I choose them with care. In doing so, people learn to trust you more, not less. You do not owe anyone an instant answer. You owe yourself the space to respond with integrity. 64. Ask questions instead of making statements. We all carry a deeply ingrained reflex. The urge to declare, to explain, to correct, and to state what we believe as if it were an undeniable fact. We assume that our belief, if stated clearly enough, will land and be accepted. But statements often close doors. They end conversations. They feel like verdicts, leaving no room for nuance or collaboration. Questions, on the other hand, unlock something far more powerful: connection. When you ask a genuine question instead of making a declarative statement, you are inviting the other person into a shared space of discovery. You are disarming them by signaling curiosity instead of control. The question, "What made you feel that way?" carries infinitely more weight and potential for resolution than the statement, "That's not what happened." The question, "How did you come to that conclusion?" builds more trust than the accusation. Builds more trust than the accusation. You're wrong. Questions give people the room to unfold their own thinking. They feel seen, not attacked, valued, not dismissed. In that atmosphere of psychological safety, defenses drop, egos soften, and minds open. You no longer have to win an argument. You simply have to ask the right question, and then allow the silence to do the heavy lifting. This is not a tactic of manipulation. It is a practice of emotional intelligence. It is the understanding that people rarely change their minds because they are told to. They change their minds when they feel truly heard. Every time you are tempted to make a statement, try asking a question instead. Watch how quickly the energy of the interaction shifts. Questions are not weaker than statements. They are braver, for they require patience and a willingness to hear something you might not expect. 65. Get sunlight before 10 a.m. You wake up feeling groggy, a mental fog clinging to your thoughts as you drag yourself through the morning rituals. Coffee feels less like a pleasure and more like a survival tool. Motivation is nowhere to be found. You wonder why you feel so depleted. The answer might be terrifyingly simple. Your body has not yet seen the sun. Getting direct sunlight exposure, particularly before 10 a.m., is not just a pleasant wellness tip. It is a fundamental act of biological programming. Your entire body operates on an internal clock, the circadian rhythm, and that clock is set each day by light. When natural morning light enters your eyes, it sends a powerful signal to your brain. The day has begun. It is time to wake up, reset, and align. This light exposure triggers the healthy release of cortisol, the energy and alertness hormone, and helps to regulate the production of melatonin, ensuring it fades at the right time and returns in the right time and returns in the turn. Evening to promote restful sleep. When you skip this crucial morning signal, your entire system can remain out of sync for the rest of the day. Even just 5 to 10 minutes spent outside, without sunglasses or a window pane between you and the sky, can be enough to make a profound difference. This simple act boosts dopamine, increases mental alertness, and has a calming effect on the nervous system. It whispers to every cell in your body, "You are alive, and this is the time to rise." You will stop needing to chase energy with caffeine and sugar, because you will be generating it naturally from within. You will feel your focus sharpen and your mood lift. You don't need to change your entire life. You just need to change the first few minutes of your morning. Step outside and let the light in. 66. Drink water before coffee. You roll out of bed, feeling heavy and groggy, craving the one thing that promises salvation: coffee. It's warm, it's fast, and the ritual itself feels like the official start of the day. Without a second thought, you reach for it. But beneath that cherished ritual lies a subtle act of betrayal against your own body. The very thing you believe is waking you up might actually be setting you up for a day of depletion. After 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your body is in a state of dehydration. Your brain is foggy, not from a lack of caffeine, but from a lack of simple hydration. Yet, most people bypass water and immediately flood their system with a diuretic and a stimulant. This jolt of caffeine pushes your cortisol levels even higher, creating a stressed, rather than a balanced, state of alertness. Your nervous system lurches awake, but it is running on fumes. The anxiety, the afternoon crash, and the jittery edge are often not a side effect of the coffee itself, but of what was missing before it. The solution is incredibly simple. Drink a full glass of water before your first sip of coffee. Not just a few sips, but a full glass. Feel your cells rehydrate and your mental clarity begin to sharpen even before the caffeine kicks in. This small act of hydration can shift your energy levels, improve your digestion, and stabilize your mood for the entire morning. You are not giving up coffee. You are simply giving your body what it actually needs first. When you do this, the coffee becomes an enhancement to your day, not an emergency fuel source. One glass, one pause, one moment of self-care before stimulation. This is not weakness. It is wisdom. 67. The 1-3-5 rule. You sit down to start your day and are immediately confronted with a to-do list that reads like a confession of your failures. Every undone task screams for your attention, demanding urgency and crowding your mind with a sense of guilt and overwhelm. It's not just a long list, it's a recipe for paralysis. When everything feels equally important, nothing gets done. To cut through this noise, you can implement a simple, elegant structure known as the 1-3-5 rule. It is a daily system designed for clarity and momentum. Each day, you choose only 9 tasks. 1 big, significant task, the 1. 3 medium-sized, important tasks, the 3. And 5 small, quick tasks, the 5. The 1 big task is the needle mover, the single item that, if completed, would make the day a definitive win. The small tasks are the quick hits that keep life flowing and provide satisfying jolts of completion. This structure is not about cramming more into your day. It's about creating intentional order. You stop reacting to whatever is screaming the loudest and start deliberately choosing your priorities. This list provides immediate psychological relief. You have a clear map for your day, not a chaotic war zone. You have scaled your expectations to a manageable level. Each box you check feels like a victory, not just another chore crossed off an endless list. The power of this system lies in its balance. You get the deep satisfaction of making meaningful progress on your most important goal, while also clearing away the smaller tasks that create mental clutter. You end your day not in shame over what you didn't do, but with a clear sense of accomplishment for what you did. 68. The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise. Panic doesn't ask for permission. It arrives suddenly and all at once. Your thoughts blur into a catastrophic spiral. Your chest tightens, and the world can feel like it's tilting on its axis. In these moments, your mind becomes a hurricane of what-ifs, and no amount of rational self-talk can cut through the noise. You don't need to fight the storm in your head. You need to anchor yourself to the solid ground of the present moment. This is where the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise becomes a powerful lifeline. It is not therapy or a spiritual practice. It is a tactical, sensory-based intervention. You start exactly where you are, with what is real. First, name 5 things you can see. Anything will do. A light bulb, your own hand, a crack in the ceiling. Next, name 4 things you can feel. The texture of your chair, the fabric of your shirt, the coolness of a table. Then 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste. With each sense you engage, you are actively pulling your brain out of the imagined future disaster and back into the reality of the present. This exercise short-circuits the anxiety spiral by flooding your mind with concrete sensory data, information that your panicked brain cannot ignore. It forces your awareness back into your body. Your breathing begins to slow, your jaw unclenches, and piece by piece, the world steadies itself. You are not escaping the panic. You are returning to yourself inside of it. The simplicity of this technique is what makes it so powerful. You can do it anywhere, at any time, without anyone else knowing. Your thoughts are given a new thread to follow, and that thread, pulled 1 sense at a time, leads you home. 69. Assume positive intent. It begins with a short, ambiguous text message, a glance you can't quite decipher, or a missed call that isn't returned. Immediately, your mind begins to fill in the gaps with a narrative of fear. They're mad at me. I did something wrong. They are pulling away. Just like that, you are no longer reacting to the objective reality of the situation. You are reacting to a story you have invented. Your negative assumptions become a weapon, and suddenly, you find yourself in the middle of a conflict that never actually happened outside of your own head. But there is a quieter, braver, and more peaceful choice that can change this entire dynamic. Assume positive intent. This doesn't mean you become naive or ignore clear red flags. It means you make a conscious decision to stop letting fear be the primary narrator of every silence and every perceived slight. You choose to believe, until proven otherwise, that people are generally not trying to hurt you. You entertain the possibility that they are simply tired, distracted, or overwhelmed, not malicious. You consider that maybe, just maybe, it isn't about you at all. This mindset has a profound calming effect on your own nervous system. It lowers the drawbridge of your heart, allowing you to approach interactions with curiosity instead of defensiveness. You start giving space for grace, for understanding, and for the actual truth to emerge. And here is the subtle magic. People often rise to the level of the belief you place in them. When you expect goodness, it becomes easier for them to offer it. Assuming positive intent is a power move, a decision to protect your own peace over your pride, and to meet the world with courage instead of armor. 70. Keep your workspace minimal. Your physical environment speaks to your subconscious mind much louder than you think. Every single object in your line of sight has a voice, and when your desk is cluttered, they are all speaking at once. Sticky notes shout forgotten reminders, tangled cables scream of chaos, and half-empty coffee mugs whisper of neglect. All of this visual, mental, and emotional noise quietly drains your focus before you have even begun to work. You are not lazy or unmotivated. You are chronically overstimulated. The solution, therefore, is not more discipline, but less distraction. A minimal workspace is not just an aesthetic choice. It is a powerful neurological strategy. Your brain craves order and performs at its best in spaces where the surroundings do not compete for its limited attention. When your desk is clear, your mind has the space to clear with it. The friction to starting your work fades away. You can sit down and know, with immediate clarity, what you are there to do. Begin by having only what you need for the task at hand on your desk, and strip away everything else. One tool, one task, one focus. Let your environment become a mirror for your intention. The physical silence of an empty desk becomes fertile ground for deep work, clean thought, and a state of flow. You stop resisting the work and start entering it fully and deliberately, without a dozen invisible anchors pulling you in different directions. The very act of clearing your space becomes a ritual, a way of signaling to yourself, this moment matters. I am showing up for it. Your workspace becomes a statement. I own this time. I am here to build something that deserves my full, undivided self. Simplicity is not empty, it is powerful. 71. Use if-then planning. You have the best of intentions. You want to change, to follow through, to show up as the person you promised yourself you would be. But then the moment of choice arrives, and life throws you a curve. You're tired, you're triggered, or you're pulled in 10 different directions. Without a predetermined plan, your brain defaults to the path of least resistance. Avoidance, excuses, and delay. This is why sheer willpower is often not enough. You need to have made the decision before the challenging moment even hits. This is the magic of if-then planning. It is a simple but profoundly effective mental contract you make with your future self. You create a clear and specific roadmap for navigating potential obstacles. The formula is, if X happens, then I will do Y. For example, If I feel overwhelmed at work, then I will step away and take 3 deep breaths before I respond. If I feel the urge to eat junk food at night, then I will drink a full glass of water. First, this is not a gimmick. It is a well-researched psychological tool. When you provide your brain with a clear contingency plan, it doesn't panic or freeze when the challenge arises. It simply executes the preloaded command. You take the emotional guesswork out of stressful situations. You replace chaos with clarity. You no longer have to trust that your future self will be strong and disciplined. You just have to follow the simple trapdoor of choice you set ahead of time. These microplans build resilience and break the chain of impulsive, regret-fueled behaviors. Success is not just built on what you do when things are going well. It is built on how you are prepared to respond when they are not. 72. Sleep with paper nearby. Night arrives, and with it, a deceptive silence. Your body may be still, but your mind often awakens. Thoughts that were buried during the busy day rise like ghosts. Brilliant ideas, lingering regrets, unfinished conversations, and sudden, urgent fears. You try to will yourself to sleep, but your brain has other plans. It tosses you solutions you couldn't find all day and problems you can't solve at midnight. This is not just insomnia, it is mental overflow. One of the simplest and most effective ways to reclaim your peace is brutally low-tech. Keep a pen and a piece of paper beside your bed. Not your phone, with its glaring blue light and endless distractions, but something real and tactile. When these thoughts flood your mind at 2 a.m., the worst thing you can do is try to hold on to them in your head. They will loop, intensify, and multiply. But the moment you write them down, you release them. They leave your nervous system and land safely on the page. The brilliant idea you don't want to lose is now captured. The anxiety you can't fix right now is contained. The to-do item you forgot is no longer spinning in your mind. This is not just a productivity trick. It is an act of mental survival. It sends a clear message to your brain. You don't have to hold this anymore. I've got it. And there is a profound magic in that ritual of release. You will wake up feeling lighter and clearer because you have stopped treating the night as a battleground for overthinking. The paper doesn't judge. It doesn't buzz. It simply listens. It simply listens. And in the quiet darkness, that is all your mind truly wants. To be heard. And then, finally, to be at rest. 73. Limit screen time before bed. It's late. You're tired, but your mind is still buzzing. You reach for your phone to fill the silence, to scroll through someone else's life, to watch just one more video. Minutes bleed into an hour, and then more. Your eyes begin to sting. Your thoughts feel scattered. And when you finally decide to sleep, your mind refuses to shut down. You stare at the ceiling, wondering why rest feels so impossibly far away. The answer is glowing in your hand. Using screens before bed is a slow, insidious theft, not just of your time, but of your peace. The blue light emitted by your phone, tablet, and computer directly suppresses the production of melatonin, your body's natural sleep hormone. Your brain, which is wired to associate light with wakefulness, becomes convinced that it is still daytime, disrupting the very process that should be preparing you for rest. On top of this biological interference, the content you consume is often chaotic, emotionally charged, and designed to be addictive, flooding your system with dopamine and cortisol. You are not winding down. You are winding up. You are bringing the noise and drama of the entire world into your bedroom, and then wondering why you cannot find sanctuary within it. But when you create a boundary and limit your screen time for just 30 to 60 minutes before bed, you reclaim that sacred space. You are sending a powerful signal to your brain and body. It is time to slow down. Your nervous system begins to exhale. Your thoughts return to your own life. Your body prepares for deep repair, not for continued reaction. This small boundary doesn't just change your night. It transforms your morning. You wake up with less fog, less fatigue, and a greater sense of calm. 74. Ask, will this matter in 5 years? You are spiraling. You are obsessing over a text message left unread, a meeting that felt awkward, or a small mistake that slipped through the cracks. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, and your entire emotional state begins to revolve around this single, seemingly monumental event. It feels huge, unforgivable, and final. But in the midst of this spiral, pause. Take a deep breath and ask yourself one quiet, seismic question. Will this matter in 5 years? Not in 5 hours, not tomorrow. 5 years. In an instant, the weight begins to shift. The manufactured urgency softens, because the truth is, most of what consumes you with stress and self-doubt right now will not even register as a memory in the long, sweeping arc of your life. The awkward comment will be forgotten. The missed opportunity will be replaced by a dozen others. The person who disappointed you will be a distant lesson. This question is not about dismissing or invalidating your current feelings. It is about calibrating them. It is about lifting your gaze from the microscopic anxieties of the present moment to the panoramic view of your life. It gives you perspective when your emotions are trying to convince you that this moment is permanent. It reminds you that time is a powerful filter, and most of the daily static doesn't survive it. And for the few things that will still matter in 5 years, your core relationships, your integrity, your health, that is where your precious energy belongs. Asking this question doesn't make your problems disappear, but it does rescue your mind from drowning in the shallow end. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life, steering with clarity instead of reacting with fear. 75. Keep a brag file. There are days when self-doubt creeps in like a thick, suffocating smoke. It's quiet, it's hard to see, but it makes it impossible to breathe. On these days, you forget what you have accomplished, who you have helped, and what mountains you have already moved. You downplay your progress, shrink your wins, and tell yourself it was all just luck or timing. This is precisely why you need a brag file. A brag file is a sacred, unapologetic, and private archive of your victories. It is a collection of every compliment you've received, every thank you email from a client, every goal you've crushed, and every moment you made someone's day or saved your own. It is screenshots, photos, and journal entries, collected like evidence to be used in the court of your own mind. Its purpose is not to feed your ego, but to remind you of who the hell you are when you inevitably forget. Because you will forget. You will hit a wall, you will face rejection, and you will feel like a fraud. When that happens, your brag file becomes your lifeline. It is a mirror of proof, not of your perfection, but of your impact, your resilience, and your growth. It silences the voice of imposter syndrome with cold, hard facts, with receipts of your own competence and kindness. This is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of profound self-preservation. It is about giving yourself a safe place to go when the world's criticism feels too loud and your own inner voice feels too small. It is for the version of you that needs a tangible reminder. You have done hard things before, and you will do them again. Your story deserves a record, and your light deserves to be seen, especially by you. 76. Compliment people behind their backs. Most compliments are ephemeral. They are nice words spoken in a moment, a polite nod, a quick smile exchanged, and then they vanish, forgotten. But when you say something kind about someone when they are not there to hear it, something extraordinary happens. The words gain a life of their own. They travel, they ripple through social circles, and if they finally circle back to the person you spoke of, they land with a completely different weight. This is because the compliment was not offered to impress them or to gain favor. It was said about them in their absence, which makes it feel undeniably real and sincere. Hearing that a colleague told your boss she handled that difficult client brilliantly carries far more power than if they had said it directly to you. It feels like a genuine testament to your character and skill. Complimenting someone behind their back flips the script on gossip. Instead of participating in negativity, you become a secret force for good, a quiet architect of morale, and a builder of other people's reputations. You don't just lift an individual's spirit, you elevate their standing in the eyes of others. In a world that is so often wired for cynicism and complaint, this is a small act of rebellion. The compliments don't have to be grand. They just have to be true and generous. They may never even get back to the person, but sometimes they will. And when they do, they will land not as flattery, but as powerful evidence that who they are and what they do speaks loudly enough for others to notice, and that someone, you, was kind enough to carry that truth forward without needing any applause. 77. Use alarms for emotional check-ins. Your day moves in a relentless blur of tasks, calls, and digital interactions. You are constantly reacting, adjusting, and executing. But just beneath the surface of all this activity, your emotional state hums along quietly, largely unchecked. You might feel a growing tension, a creeping fatigue, or a simmering resentment, but you don't pause to name it. You just keep going, pushing through until you eventually snap, shut down, or spiral. This isn't because you are broken. It's because most of us were never taught to systematically check in with ourselves. This is where setting emotional check-in alarms can be a form of preventative medicine. You can set a simple silent alarm on your phone to go off once or twice a day. When it buzzes, it's not a reminder to do something for someone else. It's a prompt to ask yourself one question. What is happening inside me right now? There is no judgment or need to fix anything. The goal is simply awareness. You pause, you take a breath, and you name it. I'm feeling tense. I'm scattered. I feel surprisingly calm. This simple act of naming breaks the loop of unconscious emotional escalation. It gives your inner world a seat at the table before it has to scream to be heard. This practice can change how you work, relate, and lead. You stop projecting your unspoken emotions onto innocent situations. You start responding to life with intention instead of reacting with baggage. Alarms are not just for appointments. They are for alignment. They are a declaration that your inner state matters. Checking in with yourself doesn't mean you are fragile. It means you are awake. 78. Remove I should. Every time you say or think the words I should, you are carving a quiet, invisible wound into your day. I should work out. I should call my parents. I should be better, faster, stronger by now. The phrase sounds harmless, even motivational, but lurking just beneath the surface of should is not strength, but shame. The word should does not inspire genuine action. It weighs it down with a heavy blanket of guilt. It frames your life as one long, continuous failure to meet a set of invisible, often arbitrary standards that you may not have even consciously chosen. I should carries an inherent judgment. It tells you that you are always behind, always lacking, always falling short of who you are supposed to be. The more you use it, the more you reinforce the belief that who you are right now is fundamentally not enough. But what if you consciously replaced it? What if I should became I want to, I choose to, or I will? Suddenly, the guilt transforms into agency. The obligation becomes a conscious decision. You reclaim your power and begin to act from a place of clarity, not compliance. You stop chasing some imagined perfect version of yourself and start honoring the real imperfect one who is simply trying their best. Even just noticing the word is a revolutionary act. Catch it mid-sentence. Feel how heavy it lands in your chest. Then, rewrite the line. Speak from a place of desire, of ownership, of someone who does not have to earn their worth before taking their next breath. You do not owe the world a life lived in the shadow of should. You can simply choose. And in that choice, you come alive. 79. Use visual timers. Time doesn't just pass. It dissolves. You sit down to work on an important task, and in what feels like a blink of an eye, an hour has vanished, and you've accomplished everything except what you intended to do. Or, conversely, you stare at the clock while working on a tedious task, and every minute stretches out like molasses. In both scenarios, time becomes the enemy, either moving too fast or too painfully slow. This is where a visual timer becomes a game changer. Unlike the silent, abstract ticking of a digital clock, a visual timer shows the passage of time. You can see the red arc shrinking, the sand falling, or the colored circle disappear. Time becomes a physical, tangible entity that your brain can actually track. And when time becomes real, your focus sharpens, and a gentle sense of urgency arises. Your mind understands. This moment matters. Now, this tool is especially powerful for those with ADHD, for chronic procrastinators, and for creative minds that can easily lose hours in a state of hyperfocus or distraction. A 25-minute red block of time fading away on your desk is not just a timer, it is a visual anchor. It creates gentle pressure without inducing panic, and provides structure without feeling rigid. When a task feels overwhelming, you don't have to focus on finishing the entire thing. You just have to stay focused until the color is gone. And you can, because your brain craves the satisfaction of completion, and now it can physically see the finish line approaching. Visual timers don't just count down your minutes. They ground you in them. They break time into a manageable piece that you can meet, hold, and conquer. 80. The ABCD method for disputing beliefs. When your thoughts begin to spiral, I'm not good enough, this always happens to me, I'll never get out of this. They don't feel like mere thoughts. They feel like immutable truths, heavy, loud, and final. But most of the time, what is actually weighing you down is not reality itself, but a distorted and unexamined belief about reality. There is a powerful way to challenge these beliefs, strip them of their power, and rebuild your mindset from the inside out. It's called the ABCD method, a cornerstone of cognitive behavioral therapy. It begins with a Y for adversity, the objective event that happened, the trigger. Then comes I, the story you immediately told yourself about the event. Next is G for consequence, how that belief made you feel and act. Most people get stuck here, living in the consequence. The breakthrough happens in the next two steps. ID is for disputation. This is where you become a detective and cross-examine your own belief. You argue back. Is this belief 100% true? Is it always true? What evidence do I have that contradicts this belief? What is a more constructive or realistic way to view this situation? This is not about toxic positivity. It is a rigorous mental interrogation that puts the thought on trial, not your emotions. Finally, E is for energization. This is the shift you feel when you successfully dispute the irrational belief. It's the breath of relief, the moment your nervous system loosens its grip, and your brain realizes, wait, maybe this isn't a catastrophe. You feel the air return to your lungs. You don't have to believe every thought your fear feeds you. You just have to know how to challenge it. 81. Treat yourself like a friend. You make a mistake. You fall behind on a project, forget an important birthday, or say the wrong thing in a meeting. And what is the very first voice you hear in your head? How could you be so stupid? What is wrong with you? The voice of your inner critic is harsh, cruel, and relentless. Now, consider this. If a so-called friend spoke to you that way, you would end the friendship immediately. Yet, you allow that voice to live, unchallenged, in your own mind, every single day. What if you made a conscious choice not to? What if, in your moments of failure and imperfection, you treated yourself with the same compassion, softness, and understanding that you would offer to a dear friend? This shift is not an act of indulgence. It is a foundational act of healing. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the very bedrock of resilience, because shame has never been a catalyst for sustainable growth. Only compassion is. Think about how you respond when a friend is in pain. You don't scold them for their mistakes. You sit beside them in their struggle. You don't shame them. You remind them of their inherent worth and strength. You listen. You forgive. You stay. Now, imagine turning that same profound kindness inward. It's okay. You're doing the best you can. We can try again tomorrow. It sounds deceptively simple, but this change in your internal language can cut through years of self-inflicted warfare. Self-compassion is not a luxury reserved for your good days. It is the essential fuel required to survive your hard days. It steadies your breath, repairs your trust in yourself, and turns the process of healing into a gentle homecoming. So, the next time you fall, don't tighten the grip of self-criticism. Loosen it. Speak to yourself like someone who is worth saving, because you are. 82. Recognize the voice of future you. Every single choice you make today echoes into a version of you that you have not yet met. The you who will wake up tomorrow morning. The you who will stand in front of the mirror next year. The you who will be holding either the weight of your regrets or the reward of your integrity. But in the heat of the present moment, the voice of this future self is often quiet, buried under the loud screams of immediate cravings, comfort, and urgency. Future you whispers, while present you demands. And yet, if you can learn to tune in and listen to that whisper, it will become your most trusted guide. Future you is the part of you that wants what is best for you in the long run. They don't shame you. They gently remind you of your own value. They don't demand perfection. They simply ask for alignment. They are the voice that says, go for that walk. You know you will feel better afterward. Put your phone down now. You will thank me when you sleep deeper. You have heard this voice before. It was the subtle nudge that told you to leave a situation that felt wrong. The gut feeling that encouraged you to speak up. Or the quiet instinct that you should try again. That was not just luck. That was you, from a point further down your own timeline, pulling you forward. And the more you learn to honor that voice, the louder and clearer it becomes. You don't need to be able to predict the future. You are actively creating it with every bite, every word, and every choice. You are building someone, and that someone is you. So, in your next moment of decision, pause and ask, what would the person I want to become want me to do right now? Then act like they matter, because they do. 83. Have a wind-down ritual. The day doesn't just end when you close your laptop or turn off the lights. Your body may be still, but your mind is often still pacing, replaying conversations, reliving moments of stress, and mentally reaching for tasks you didn't finish. Your nervous system is still logged in. And so, you lie in bed feeling wired and restless, scrolling through your phone, wondering why true rest feels so impossible to achieve. What you are missing is not sleep itself, but closure. This is where a wind-down ritual becomes a sacred and non-negotiable part of your day. A wind-down ritual is a deliberate, consistent set of actions that signals to your brain and body the day is done. We are safe to let go now. This doesn't have to be an elaborate spa experience. It is about rhythm, repetition, and familiarity. It could be as simple as washing your face slowly, dimming the lights, putting your phone away in another room, reading a few pages of a physical book, or journaling one line about your day. You design this ritual not as a luxury, but as a necessary transition from a state of doing to a state of being, from noise to silence. Your body will respond to this consistency. Your heart rate will lower, your thoughts will soften, and your brain will begin to produce melatonin, not from a pill, but from a state of peace. This ritual doesn't just prepare you for sleep, it protects it. It tells your inner world, there are no more decisions to be made tonight. There is no more vigilance required. There is only rest. What matters most is that it is yours, repeatable, small, and sacred. When you teach your brain what it feels like to truly close the day, The day stops haunting your sleep. 84. Track your mood in 3 words daily. Most days you move too quickly to even notice how you are truly feeling. You are working, reacting, and surviving, and your emotions become a blurry, unspoken background noise. They are heavy and influential, but they remain unnamed. You cannot manage what you do not measure, and you cannot heal what you have not yet acknowledged. This is why the simple practice of tracking your mood in just 3 words each day can become a quiet revolution in your self-awareness. At some point every day, you pause for just a few seconds and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Then you write down 3 words. Not a paragraph, not a lengthy explanation, just 3 sharp, honest signals from your inner world. Foggy, anxious, detached, focused, grateful, calm, tired, uninspired, hopeful. There is no right or wrong answer. The words don't need to be poetic. They just need to be true. This simple ritual builds your emotional fluency. It trains your mind to stop, check in, and listen to itself. You will begin to notice patterns you were previously blind to, how certain people, places, or even foods affect your state. You will start to see what lifts you, what drains you, and what lingers. You stop being a passive passenger in your own emotional life and start taking the wheel. The shift is not just cognitive, it is spiritual. The moment you name a feeling, it stops having unconscious control over you. You create a critical space between the emotion and your reaction to it. And in that space, your power lives. 3 words a day. That's all. But over time, they become a map, a mirror, and a lighthouse, proving that you are not stuck. You are evolving. 85. Pair hard tasks with rewards. There's that one task on your to-do list. You know the one. It's the difficult phone call you keep postponing, the workout you swear you'll start tomorrow, the tedious spreadsheet that needs organizing. It stares at you like a dare, heavy, boring, and intimidating, and so you avoid it. This is not because you are lazy, but because your brain, a master of cost-benefit analysis, sees only the effort and none of the immediate payoff. This is why you must learn to bribe yourself, intelligently and shamelessly. You must pair the hard thing with a tangible reward that your nervous system actually craves. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's a strategic application of biology. The neurotransmitter dopamine is the fuel of action, and rewards are how you manually generate it. When you pair a difficult task with something genuinely pleasurable, an episode of your favorite show, a walk in the sun, a delicious piece of chocolate, you rewire the entire experience. You begin to associate the difficult task not with dread, but with the anticipation of a win. This is a form of emotional habit anchoring. I only get to listen to my favorite podcast when I'm at the gym. I get to have my best cup of coffee right after I write for 30 minutes. The key is to make the reward immediate and consistent. Over time, your brain starts to desire the hard thing because it knows what's coming next. This fundamentally changes your relationship with resistance. It replaces dread with motivation and makes discipline feel less like a punishment and more like a partnership with yourself. You are not forcing effort, you are rewarding it. And when effort feels rewarding, it becomes sustainable. 86. Say no without explaining. You feel it coming. The request, the invitation, the favor dressed up as a compliment. In your gut, the immediate answer is no. But then, out of habit, fear, or a deep-seated need to be liked, you begin to scramble for a justification. You invent reasons, you soften the refusal with apologies, and you bend your own truth to cushion their potential disappointment. Every time you do this, you are handing over a small piece of your power. Saying no without offering a lengthy explanation is not cold or rude. It is an act of radical self-respect. Behind every unnecessary explanation is a hidden, unspoken plea. Please understand me. Please understand me. Please approve of my boundaries. Please don't be upset with me. But your boundaries do not need anyone else's permission to exist. They simply need to be honored by you. You do not owe an explanation for your time, your energy, or your attention. A simple, "No, I'm not available," or "Thank you for thinking of me, but I can't take that on right now," is complete, clean, and whole. Yes, it may feel uncomfortable at first. It may feel like standing naked in your own truth. But that is how you build integrity. Every time you say no without defending it, you are teaching yourself that your own needs matter. You are teaching others that your boundaries are not up for negotiation. And slowly, you will stop fearing the fallout. You will stop shrinking yourself to make others feel more comfortable. The people who truly belong in your life will not need a reason to respect your no. They will simply hear it and continue to value you. Because real connection does not require explanation. It requires honesty. 87. Shake your body when stuck. There is a type of stuckness that is not purely mental. It is deeply physical. You sit frozen in front of your computer screen, your jaw clenched, your shoulders hunched, and your thoughts looping like a broken record. You try to think your way out of it, to push through with sheer grit, but nothing moves. This is because your body is holding on to the stress, trauma, and tension that your mind cannot process. The fastest way to reset is not to think harder, but to move your body. So, shake, literally. Stand up, let your arms go loose, and begin to bounce on the heels of your feet. Shake your hands, your hips, your legs. Let it be awkward, primal, and uninhibited. You are not dancing. You are engaging in a practice known as somatic discharging. Animals in the wild do this instinctively after they escape a predator. They don't overanalyze the event. They tremble and shake the trauma out of their nervous system. You can do the same. In just 30 seconds of shaking, you can break the pattern of tension. Blood begins to flow, and your nervous system shifts from a state of freeze into a state of flow. You will start breathing more deeply, thinking more clearly, and feeling more alive. This is not a silly exercise. It is a sacred act of letting go. Use it when you feel creatively blocked, emotionally numb, or completely overwhelmed. When you can't write, can't speak, or can't decide, just shake. Let it all move through you. You will feel the shift, not just in your limbs, but in your mental clarity. The fog will lift, and the spiral will slow. The body knows how to reset itself. All it needs is your permission. 88. Use ambient noise for focus. There is often a hum of distraction just behind your conscious thoughts. It might be a silence that feels too loud and unsettling, or a surrounding noise that is too sharp and intrusive. You try to focus, but your mind wanders, grabbed by every little sound or pulled into the vacuum of quiet. You can't drop into a state of flow because your environment is either sterile or overstimulated. This is where ambient noise becomes your secret portal to deep work. Not silence and not music with lyrics, but something in between. Ambient noise is the gentle, consistent background current that can trick your brain into a state of stillness. The soft chatter of a distant cafe, the rhythm of rainfall, the low hum of a fan, or the crackling of a fire. These soft, patterned sounds create a kind of mental cocoon. They form a barrier between your thoughts and the distracting outside world. They blur sudden noises, soothe anxiety, and send a signal to your mind. We are in focus mode now. This is not a random effect. Studies have shown that a moderate level of ambient noise can activate the brain just enough to stimulate creativity and sustain attention, without being distracting enough to pull you out of your task. It can mimic the low hum of a bustling, safe environment, which our evolutionary brains are trained to interpret as a sign that it is safe to lower our guard and concentrate. Find your signature sound. the one that melts the noise in your head and sharpens what is in front of you. Use headphones, loop it, and make it a ritual. Ambient noise doesn't entertain you. It anchors you. 89. Imagine time as currency. You spend it constantly, every single day. Every mindless scroll through social media, every unproductive meeting, every just one more episode on a streaming service. But because you do not see it physically leaving your hand, you forget that it is happening. You forget that time is your most valuable, finite, and non-refundable currency, silently slipping away, second by second. By second. But what if you started to imagine your time as actual money? Everything changes. Picture that each hour of your day is worth $100. Each minute is a coin you will never get back. Suddenly, a 3-hour social media binge is not just a relaxing evening. It is a $300 withdrawal from your life account. That pointless, rambling conversation cost you $50. The important project you have been avoiding is not just costing you your future. It is actively bleeding your balance sheet right now. This mental reframe is not about inducing guilt. It is about cultivating profound awareness. Once you start thinking of your time in this way, you stop spending it as if it were an unlimited resource. You begin to ask better, sharper questions. Is this activity worth what I am paying for it? Would I invest this hour in this person, this task, this thought? You will quickly realize that some things are worth everything, and many things are not worth even 5 minutes of your precious, limited supply. You will stop overcommitting. You will protect your time like a bank account. You will say no without shame and guard your mornings with fierce intention. Your life is not slipping away in a series of invisible transactions. It is being invested one valuable second at a time. 90. Gamify your boring tasks. There are certain tasks that feel like they are dragging your soul down by the minute. Doing the laundry, budgeting your finances, replying to a backlog of emails, cleaning up your digital files. They are not necessarily difficult, but they are lifeless, heavy with repetition, and completely empty of any thrill. And that is precisely why you avoid them. They drain your energy without providing any rewarding feedback. But what if you could flip the script? What if you didn't just do the task, but turned it into a game? Gamification is a powerful technique that hijacks your brain's dopamine system, the system responsible for motivation and reward. You can give yourself points for every email you clear. You can race against a timer while you fold your clothes. You can create a scoreboard for your boring errands. You can set personal bests and try to beat them. You can assign yourself mini-levels, prizes, and even silly, fake penalties. Suddenly, the task that used to dull your spirit becomes something that sparks it. Your brain lights up, not because the task itself has changed, but because the story you are telling yourself about it has changed. Games create stakes, provide instant feedback, and allow for a sense of progress. They tap into the part of you that loves to win, to track your achievements, and to chase small victories. Even if the prize is purely imaginary, the motivation it generates is very real. You are tricking your mind into caring about something it would otherwise resist. Gamifying your life is not childish. It is an act of strategic joy. It makes the most mundane corners of your existence feel a little more electric, and it can provide the spark you need to finally get things done. 91. Whisper instead of yelling. When your frustration rises and your voice begins to escalate with it, it feels like yelling is the only way to be truly heard. You believe that the louder you get, the more power you will have in the situation. But in reality, yelling rarely commands respect. It repels it. It creates tension, builds defensive walls, and adds more noise to an already chaotic situation. It triggers a fight or flight response in the other person, ensuring they are no longer listening to your words, but are simply reacting to your aggression. But a whisper can slice through that chaos like a blade through still air. Choosing to whisper when someone expects you to shout does not make you weaker. It makes you dangerously unpredictable and powerful. People are forced to lean in to hear you. Their own heartbeat slows to match your calm. The entire energy of the room stills. A whisper signals absolute confidence, control, and intention. It says, "I do not need to raise my voice to increase the weight of my words." It instantly disarms the fight, shifting the focus from the volume of the conflict to the content of your message. You no longer sound desperate or out of control. You sound deadly clear. A whisper carries a gravity that a scream can never achieve. This tactic is not just for conflict. It works in persuasion, in leadership, and in moments of intimacy. It makes your listener feel that they are being included in a secret, not attacked by a threat, and it changes you too. The physical act of lowering your voice centers your body, slows your breath, and calms your own nervous system. Yelling feels powerful. Whispering is. 92. Sit in a different chair. You think you are stuck because of the problem you are facing, but often, you are stuck because of the physical position you are in. You are sitting in the same chair, with the same posture, in the same room, breathing the same stale air. Your brain is a master of association, and it has learned to link your physical environment to your emotional and mental states. Every time you sit in that familiar spot, at the desk where you feel the pressure, on the couch where you scroll to numb your feelings, you are queuing up the same old mental playlist. Your thoughts don't change because nothing in your environment does. But if you simply shift your seat, everything can tilt. Just one move. Sit on the floor. Perch on a windowsill. Take your laptop to the kitchen counter. Take your laptop to the kitchen counter. Your body immediately registers the difference. Your view changes, your posture adjusts, and the psychological pressure begins to rewire. You have interrupted the autopilot with a clear physical signal. We are not in the same loop anymore. New chairs create new associations. They can trigger creativity, reflection, or action, depending on the intention you set for that space. You can designate a specific seat just for writing, another for difficult conversations, and another for quiet reflection. You are creating micro-environments and micro-identities. Your space becomes a responsive tool rather than a restrictive cage. This is the fastest spatial hack to change your mental state without needing a vacation. You don't have to escape your life. You just need to shift your seat inside it. You are not changing the world, but you are changing your angle on it. And sometimes, that is all your mind needs to get unstuck. 93. Tell the story backwards. There are moments in life when everything feels like it is crashing down at once. Emotionally, mentally, relationally. You look around at the wreckage of your current situation and whisper to yourself, "How did I possibly end up here?" It can feel as though a storm hit you out of nowhere, with no warning. But storms don't just appear. They build, slowly, and often invisibly. Sometimes, the only way to truly understand the present is to stop trying to push forward through the confusion, and instead, start pulling the story backward. Telling the story backwards means you begin with the end result, the moment you are in right now. Start with the raw emotion. I feel exhausted and hollow. Then, rewind. What happened just before you felt this way? What was the trigger for this specific mood or thought? Keep stepping back. Before that text message, before that meeting, before that silence. You will begin to unravel the timeline not from a place of emotional chaos, but from a place of clear sequence. This is more than just analysis. It is an act of profound self-compassion. As you retrace your steps in reverse, you often realize that what felt sudden was actually the culmination of a series of small, invisible choices, ignored instincts, and minor compromises. You see where the cracks began to form. And that awareness is powerful, because if a situation was built, step by step, it can also be unbuilt, rewritten, and reclaimed. This process strips away the shame and replaces it with curiosity. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "Where did I begin to abandon myself?" The map to your healing is often written in reverse. 94. Let the first draft be trash. You sit in front of the blank page, the empty canvas, the new project file. The vision in your mind is so vivid and perfect that it aches to be released. But your fingers freeze. Every word feels wrong. Every line feels awkward. Every idea feels clumsy. You start, you delete, you start again, you backspace, you sigh. The ghost of perfection is hanging over your shoulder, whispering, "This isn't good enough." This is precisely why you must adopt one of the most liberating rules of all creative work. Let the first draft be absolute, unapologetic trash. Not mediocre, not could be better, genuine, messy, bloated trash. Let it ramble. Let it contradict itself. Let it miss the point entirely. The first draft is not the masterpiece. It is the permission slip. It is you throwing a bucket of paint at the canvas just so you can see what colors you are working with. No one can edit a blank page. No one can publish a story they never had the courage to write in its raw, imperfect form. You will be shocked at what emerges when you stop clutching the outcome and just allow yourself to move. Hidden ideas, emotional truths, and moments of unexpected genius often appear disguised as garbage. Your job in the first draft is not to write well. Your job is simply to write. The sculpting, refining, and polishing all come later. And strangely, this freedom from expectation is what creates real momentum. You stop fearing the page and start showing up, not as the perfect version of yourself, but as the real one. And the real one is the only one who has something truly worth saying. So write like no one is watching. Write like it's okay to get it all wrong. Because beneath that trash draft, there is gold. 95. Change the font for a mental reset. You are staring at the screen, reading the same paragraph for the 5th time. Your eyes have glazed over, your mind is drifting, and the words that you once cared deeply about now feel like meaningless static. You're not necessarily tired, you're numb. This is not a productivity problem. It is a pattern recognition problem. Your brain has seen this text, this layout, and this font so many times that it has literally stopped paying attention. It's on autopilot. But there is a surprisingly simple and immediate fix for this mental fatigue. Change the font. With just one click, one small aesthetic shift, from a serif font to a sans serif, from small to large, from regular to bold, you can trick your brain into re-engaging. What happens next is almost instantaneous. The content suddenly feels unfamiliar again. The structure that you had become blind to is now visible. You are not reading anything new, but it feels new. And that feeling is enough to bring your focus roaring back online. This isn't just a cosmetic trick, it's a cognitive one. Your brain craves novelty. When it receives it, even in these tiny visual doses, it rewards you with a fresh burst of attention. That attention leads to better retention, which leads to greater clarity, which leads to real progress. Use this technique when you are editing your own writing, reviewing a dense document, or brainstorming ideas. When you feel stuck with a project that once inspired you but now just feels dead, don't try to rewrite it. Try to IRC it, change the font, reset the lens. It is the fastest way to rewire your focus without needing a coffee, a break, or a pep talk. The work didn't get better. You just remembered how to see it again. 96. Clench your toes to anchor in the present. There are moments when your mind takes off without you. It spirals into imagined future catastrophes, replays old, painful conversations, and invents worst-case scenarios that feel just real enough to be paralyzing. You try to breathe your way through it, to reason with it, to override the panic with logic. But logic cannot always reach a nervous system that has already decided it is under threat. When the storm starts inside your head, the way out is not up, into more thinking, but down, to the ground level, through your toes, slowly and firmly. Clench your toes, first on one foot, then the other. Hold the contraction for 5 seconds, then release. Repeat this a few times. You might think this small hidden gesture couldn't possibly matter, but that is the brilliance of it. It is discreet, immediate, and completely physical. It bypasses the need for thought entirely and grabs your focus through raw sensation. This simple technique pulls you out of the chaotic cognitive spin and drops you back into your body. It sends a clear grounding signal to your brain. I am here. I am here. I am safe. I am in control. Your feet connect with the earth beneath you. Your muscles engage and your awareness travels downward, away from the storm in your mind. You stop floating in anxiety. You arrive in your physical self. And once you are back in your body, your breath naturally begins to follow. Your thoughts slow, and your sense of presence expands. Use this during a panic attack, a tough conversation, or a sleepless night. Clench, breathe, and feel. It won't solve the external situation, but it will stabilize you inside of it. Sometimes, the most powerful way to reclaim your mind is through the quiet, firm grip of 10 grounded toes. 97. Write the email, then delete it. There are moments when your chest burns with something that has been left unsaid. An argument you never properly finished. An apology you never gave. A raw truth you have buried beneath layers of politeness, silence, or fear. And it festers. You rehearse the words in your head, over and over again, knowing they will likely never be spoken aloud. Because if they were, they might just explode everything. But holding it all in is its own special kind of destruction. So, here is the middle ground, the safe release valve. Write the email and then delete it. Open a blank document and type out every word with brutal, unfiltered honesty. Say what you really meant to say. Let the fury spill onto the page. Let the heartbreak scream. Let the honesty crack the surface of your composure. Do not censor yourself. Do not edit your words to be more likable. Make it ugly. Make it real. Make it real. The purpose of this exercise is not to communicate with the other person. It is to release what has been rotting inside of you. This is an act of emotional detox. The physical act of writing is your pressure valve. It allows the unspoken to finally be spoken, not out loud, but in ink. And the moment it exists outside of your body, it begins to lose its power over you. You can see it clearly. You can feel the truth of it. And you can also feel, maybe for the first time, what parts of it no longer need to be said. Then, you delete it, or save it in a hidden folder, or even print it out and burn it. The real release has already happened. It was in the act of writing, not in the outcome. Not everything needs to be sent, but everything needs somewhere to go. 98. Use a different name for a hard identity. There is a version of you that shows up in the moments you hate. It's the part of you that lashes out in anger, that procrastinates on important goals, that sabotages good relationships, or that numbs out with distraction. You watch yourself repeat these old painful patterns and whisper to yourself, "Why do I keep doing this?" You feel broken and ashamed, as if these worst moments are the truest definition of who you are. But what if they weren't? What if you could meet these parts of yourself not with self-loathing, but with a degree of separation? What if you gave them a name? Not your name, but theirs. Sabotage Sam. Panic Pete. The inner critic. You are creating a character, not a curse. You are identifying a pattern, not your entire personality. This tiny linguistic shift creates a crucial space between you and the behavior. It turns self-blame into self-awareness. Now, it is no longer juice spiraling out of control. It is that old character showing up again, with the same lines, the same moves, and the same fear driving them. And in that space, you regain the power to choose. You can talk back. "Hey Sam, I see you trying to ruin this good thing again. We're not doing that today. Thanks for trying to keep me safe, Panic Pete. But I've got this one." Suddenly, your emotional history is no longer in the driver's seat. You are. This is not about avoidance. It is about ownership without collapse. It is about creating a language for the parts of you that do not need more shame. They need clearer boundaries. Naming doesn't make them disappear, but it does make them manageable. And it reminds you that you are not your patterns. You are the one who observes them. 99. The 5-year-old test. Your mind is spinning, caught in a complex decision, a nuanced conflict, or a thought loop that feels impossibly tangled. You overanalyze, you overthink, and you twist yourself into emotional knots trying to make sense of it all. But the harder you think, the foggier it gets. You are not getting closer to clarity. You are drowning in your own intellect. This is when you need to use the 5-year-old test. Ask yourself a simple question. How would I explain this entire situation to a 5-year-old? This exercise forces you to strip away all the jargon, the drama, the layers of ego and defense. You have to break the problem down to its simplest, most essential form. I'm scared to try this new thing because I might fail. That person hurt my feelings, and I want them to say they are sorry. I am tired all the time because I never let myself rest. What felt impossibly complicated becomes clean. What felt unspeakable becomes brutally honest. Children do not care about your corporate strategy, your long-term projections, or your sophisticated justifications. They care about the raw, simple truth. And when you are lost, that is what you need too. Not more complexity, but the pure essence of the problem. When you can find the child's version of your truth, you find the version that is easiest to act on. And often, it is the one that both hurts the most and heals the fastest. This is not about dumbing down your problems. It is about stripping them down to what is real. Because if a 5-year-old could understand it, then so can you. And maybe, for the first time, you finally will. 100. Treat today like a documentary scene. Most of our days pass by like indistinct background noise. We move through them on autopilot, scrolling, reacting, multitasking, surviving. We tell ourselves that the big, important moments are still ahead, that someday we will finally show up as our best selves, that eventually our real story will begin. But the truth is, it has already begun. It is happening right now. The camera is already rolling. You just haven't noticed. So for just one day, try this. Treat today like it is a scene in a documentary about your life. Not the polished highlight reel, not the formal interview, but the raw, candid, fly-on-the-wall footage. The scenes that reveal who you truly are when you think no one is watching. When you wake up tired but still choose to get out of bed. When you speak to someone with gentleness instead of lashing out. When you sit down to do the hard, unglamorous work that no one will ever clap for. The camera is invisible, but it is there, capturing the details of you brushing your teeth, making your coffee, choosing your words, holding your silence. Every small move you make is a detail in the larger arc of your becoming. When you start to view your life this way, everything shifts. You walk with more presence. You speak with more care. You listen like it matters. This is not about performing for an imaginary audience. It is about cultivating a sense of reverence for your own life. You are not pretending someone is watching. You are remembering that you are both the author and the lead actor in your story. Every decision you make today is a part of that narrative. Every choice is a frame in the film. So treat this moment like it matters. Because it does. Roll camera. Scene you.